Call the meeting to order. We still have people in line. So as you know, it takes us a few minutes to really get into the heart of the meeting. So hopefully those people will be checked in by the time we actually get to the articles. But we have a lot of business this evening. We have a number of articles. If you add everything up between the special and the annual, it's 51 separate items of business. And obviously our goal is to try to get it all done this evening. So we have a lot ahead of us. So I'll call the meeting to order, and as we always do, I recognize the Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Lou Stone, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Thank you. As we always do at our first, our annual town meeting, we take a moment to recognize those members of our community, those former folks who've served in one capacity or another, either volunteer or appointed or elected capacity, who passed away over the past year. So this year we recognize 4 people, actually 5 people, who are all important contributors to our community. Carol Norris, who died back in January of 2016. She was a member of the Recreation Commission, the South Shore Arts Collaborative. Pat Salmon, a longtime secretary in the Veterans Office, and worked for the Pembroke School Department. Chuck Mulrain, Civil Defense Director, among other positions in town. Vince Cogliano, who passed away last year at the age of 100. A member of the Democratic Town Committee and active in town for many years. And John Lydon, who is a GATRA representative and a member of the Council on Aging for many years. So I ask you just to take a moment, silence, to remember them, their contribution to our community, and their families. Thank you. Just a couple items of business. We do, as we do at every meeting, do have a limited number, but a number of hearing assist devices. And I'm told that when they're working properly, they are very helpful to people who have hearing aids, who may not be able to pick up or understand clearly the amplification system we have here, which seems to be working okay, and thanks to all the folks who have worked on it to fine-tune it. So those are available from the tellers. Gail Sims is back there. Raise your hand, Gail. If you think you could use one of those, we only have a small number of them, but they may be helpful. I know several folks are using them already. The order of business is as it always is, and again, it's great to see so many people here. If this is your first time to the meeting, just raise your hand. I'm always curious to see who's new. It's a great number, so thanks for coming, and we hope you come back. But our order of procedure is fairly simple, straightforward. We do follow town meeting time, which is a variation of Robert's rules, so you must speak through the moderator. You have to be recognized by the moderator, by the chair, in order to speak. We ask you, if you do want to speak, to come down to one of the microphones on either side. If you're up front here, you could use one of the microphones up here. State your name and street. I don't enforce that, but it's something that really should be done because some people may know you, but not everyone may know you. So just say Steve Dodge, High Street, and then address the meeting. The order and type of motions are listed in the front page of the warrant. To give you an idea of the different types of motions. The only time that I allow someone to address from the chair is if you want to raise a point of order. And a point of order is basically, Mr. Moderator, I can't hear, I can't see, I don't understand. We don't want anyone not to understand what's happening or what the motion is or what the vote is. So if you have a point of order, just jump up out of your seat, yell it out so I can hear you, and I'll recognize you right away. Other than that, I ask that you go to the microphone. If you have difficulty in getting around and it's hard for you to get to the microphone, just raise your hand and we'll make sure the microphone gets to you. But absent that, we ask you to address the chair through the microphone. We have the lottery system here, so with the exception of several articles that we'll take up at the beginning, everything goes into our highly technical box here, and we take things based on the lottery. We can take things out of order, but generally we would go by the lottery system. We do have a visitor section. I'm not sure if we have just visitors in that section back here, but we have several people who are going to address the meeting who are not residents, and we also welcome non-residents and visitors. They are in that section over there. If you are a resident and sitting over there and you wish to be counted, if there is either a hand or a roll call vote, then you have to remove yourself from that area and just stand out front or beside, because you will not be counted if you're sitting in the visitors area and you are a resident. As you know, as she always does, Carol Dodge is selling just what we need to get through a long evening, caffeine and candy and sugar to benefit the Key Club. She's out there. Also, this year, Kathleen Keegan is out promoting and accepting donations for what will hopefully be another wonderful fireworks display, which is scheduled for September 23rd. And Kathleen is out there sitting right next to Carol. Let me just quickly introduce the boards that are here. To my immediate right is the town clerk and assistant town clerk. To my right, sitting down here, are members of the advisory board. Table in front, town council, members of the board of selectmen, town administrator Ed Thorne, and to my left is planning board and maybe some DPW folks as well. We can't fit everybody up front. So the tellers have been sworn in. We have 4 tellers who will be counting if need be. And the chair is satisfied that the warrant for the meeting, as well as a special town meeting, and by the way, we have a special town meeting within the annual town meeting that will begin in or around 7:30 or so. So we'll recess the annual, go to the special, then come back to the annual. Chair is satisfied that the warrant for the meeting, as well for the annual meeting as well as the special town meeting, has been properly posted. So we will dispose of the reading of the warrant and the notice of posting. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to recognize one person for a very short discussion. The jewel of any community are its libraries. And we are fortunate in Pembroke. We have a beautiful center library, and we have 2 other libraries altogether. And while some may think that libraries are going the way of the dodo bird, that's actually the opposite is the case. And they're thriving and needed more now than ever. Pembroke is fortunate that we have had in the past a public library private foundation that has been rejiggered. And the chair has asked the now new president of the Pembroke Library Foundation, Marie Peeler, who many of you recognize from being on advisory for many years, just to briefly address the meeting. Marie? Right there.
Thank you, Steve. A lot of people think that libraries are a place that houses books and loans them out to people who have library cards. And certainly our library does that, but it does so much more as well. Our library is a center for media, internet connectivity, art, culture. It's a gathering place and a place of learning. And so many of the resources that we enjoy there are provided by your tax dollars and also the generosity and hard work of our group of friends of the library. And yet these resources just can't meet the needs of a modern library. So for that reason, we've started the Pembroke Public Library Foundation to really help our library meet the needs of what's required of a library today. We need additional space, there are financial constraints, all sorts of things that can't be met through the means that we're currently using. So it's my hope in the about 90 seconds that I'm allocated this evening to just hopefully captivate your interest to learn more about the Pembroke Public Library Foundation. I'd love to talk to you about our mission, what we hope to accomplish, the projects that we are contemplating, and love to talk to you about getting involved. Not only do we need financial support, what group doesn't need that, but we also would love to see you get involved. We need additional directors, and we need people who maybe aren't interested in serving on committees, but just want to help out in some capacity. So if you'd like to know more about the Pembroke Public Library Foundation, what we're doing and how you might be able to get involved, you can either stop in the library, ask anybody, and they'll give you my information. My email is a very long one. No one will remember it if I give it out. Is Deborah Wall here somewhere? Deborah, wave your... Up front. What is our email address? I knew it was pretty easy. foundation@pembrokepubliclibrary.org, or just ask anybody in the library and they can point you in our direction. Thank you.
Thank you. One procedural item. You will notice on the warrant that there are several, maybe more than several items that need a 2/3 vote. Authorization to borrow, bylaw changes, a few other things need a 2/3 vote. Without the authority of the moderator to declare a 2/3, we'd have to take a standing vote for every one of those votes. So in order to save time, and this is something we routinely do, the town does not have a bylaw allowing the moderator to do that, so the chair has to ask your permission each year to give the moderator power to declare a 2/3 vote, and I can assure you the chair will not do it if the votes are close. So in accordance with our usual practice, Mr. Boyle moves that if a 2/3 vote is required by statute, the moderator is authorized to declare a 2/3 vote if, after a show of hands, the moderator determines that the 2/3 majority has been reached. Provided, however, that if a vote so declared is immediately questioned by 7 or more voters, the moderator shall verify the 2/3 majority by ordering a standing count of the yeas and nays. Is there a second? Second. Chair has second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. We are going to do one thing differently, and I'll explain that when we get to that. We're going to try a consent calendar, which will combine non-controversial items together, save us a few minutes. It's very common in a lot of other towns, and we will do that after we do the first 2 articles. And even though we have the lottery system, the bylaw stipulates that the first 2 items of business are Articles 2 and 3. So we will go to Article 2 first, which is the Wage and Personnel Compensation Schedule, and the chair recognizes Steve Curley from Advisory Committee.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Schedules A, B, C, and D of the Classification and Compensation Bylaws according to the schedules listed and printed in Appendix D of this warrant, and to raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $46,783, and from solid waste revenue the sum of $1,217 to fund the changes, and further authorize the town accountant to allocate the funds to the appropriate budget items voted under Article 3 and 5 of this meeting.
Motion's been made and seconded. You'll see all the schedules are listed in Appendix D of the warrant, and we'll take each one at a time. If there's any questions, just shout it out. Otherwise, we'll just approve each schedule separately. So the first one would be Schedule A, which is the annual salary for full-time officers and employees. Is there any discussion or any question? Seeing none, all those in favor of Schedule A, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Annual salary Schedule B, appointed part-time officers and employees. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Schedule B, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Attachment D, which is the hourly wage schedule, Schedule C, hourly wage Schedule C for full-time and part-time employees Is there any discussion or question? Seeing none, all those in favor of Schedule C, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Annual Schedule D for elected full-time and part-time officials. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Schedule D, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 3 is the budget, which again is attached, it's Appendix A to the warrant.
Mr. Moderator.
The chair recognizes the chair of the advisory committee, Linda Peterson.
Mr. Moderator, move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $60,255,083 to fund the operating expenses of the town for the fiscal year 2018 as listed under Appendix A of this warrant, and to fund this appropriation, raise and appropriate from taxation the sum of $59,750,151 and transfer the following sums. Free cash, $233,091. Silver Lake Escrow Fund, $179,339. Ambulance Fund, $470,000. Septic Betterment Program, $93,360. Cemetery Funds, $27,219. Recreation Revolving, $12,288. Council on Aging Transportation Fund, $80,000. School Construction Surplus, $73,660. School Athletic Funds, $10,975.
The motion's been made and seconded. The chair will say if there's plenty of seats out front, so I hate to see people standing, so you're welcome to come and sit back here. Is there a question about the visitors section, or? That's fine, sure, yeah. So the way we do the budget is we'll take each department as it is. So we'll go through it fairly quickly, but that's not to preclude any discussion or debate. So I'll ask for just a yay and nay for each department. If you have a question, just shout it out, Mr. Moderator, and we'll hold it and we'll entertain the question, okay? So we'll start with the moderator, wages and salaries elected for the sum of $100. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Board of Selectmen, wages and salaries elected $9,000, wages and salaries $129,050, general expenses $8,150, purchase of surfaces audit OPEB study $47,500. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Town administrator, wages and salaries, $141,472. General expenses, $3,550. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Legal purchase of services, $115,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Advisory committee, wages and salaries, $6,260. General expenses, $572. Reserve fund, $50,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Town accountant, wages and salaries, $119,275. General expenses, $6,800. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Board of Assessors, wages and salaries elected, $5,400. Wages and salaries, $235,417. General expenses, $37,150. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Treasurer collected, wages and salaries, $331,408. General expenses, $79,885. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Data processing, general expenses, $64,475. All those any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Town clerk, wages and salaries elected, $83,000. Wages and salaries, $51,306. General expenses, $4,320. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Oh, excuse me. Elections, wages and salaries, $30,000. General expenses, $16,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Registrations, wages and salaries, $5,600. General expenses, $6,300. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Conservation Commission, wages and salaries, $57,263. General expenses, $935. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Planning Board, wages and salaries, $48,068. General expenses, $2,240. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Zoning Board of Appeals, wages and salaries, $24,954. General expenses, $2,600. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Plenty of seats up front. People want to move up here. Town Hall maintenance, wages and salaries, $96,110. General expenses, $93,890. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Police Department, wages and salaries, $3,316,567. General expenses, $325,502. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Fire Department, wages and salaries, $2,917,304. General expenses, $175,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Inspectional Services, wages and salaries, $191,617. General expenses, $12,400. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Emergency Management, wages and salaries, $2,646. General expenses, $9,511. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Dog Officer, wages and salaries, $50,472. General expenses, $6,750. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Pembroke Public Schools, $32,218,670. Any discussion? Seeing none. $32,218,670, which is mine right? Okay. Okay.
All the other numbers that you have are perfect. That's the number.
Okay, the chair is in error. The correct number for Pembroke Public Schools is $32,338,670, which is what is printed. Chair apologizes. Any discussion? $32,338,670. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Department of Public Works, wages and salaries, $874,343. General expenses, $325,186. Snow and ice, $100,000. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Street lighting, general expenses, $223,277. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Board of Health, wages and salaries, $119,947. General expenses, $7,610. Purchase of services, nursing, $20,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Council on Aging, wages and salaries, $180,815. General expenses, $44,733. Senior tax program, $5,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Veteran Services, wages and salaries, $68,286. General expenses, $2,300. Benefits and medical, $170,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Commission on Disabilities, general expenses, $705. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Library, wages and salaries, $544,183. General expenses, $59,800. Books, $86,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Lydia Drake Library, $5,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Recreation Commission, wages and salaries, $94,779. General expenses, $12,080. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Community Center, wages and salaries, $24,969. General expenses, $49,146. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Herring Fisheries, general expenses, $1,800. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Town Landing, wages and salaries, $43,227. General expenses, $1,600. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Town Clock Winder, the chair's favorite, $1,457. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Sometimes there is. Is there any? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Town Memorial Committee, $5,910. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Plymouth County Cooperative, general expenses, $107. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Historical Commission, general expenses, $2,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Maturing debt principal, general expenses, $2,363,472. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Maturing debt interest, general expenses, $626,786. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Short-term interest, general expenses, $45,500. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Plymouth County Retirement, general expenses, $3,135,629. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Unemployment compensation, general expenses, $75,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Group health insurance, general expenses, $8,452,347. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Group life insurance, general expenses, $20,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Medicare tax, general expenses, $484,100. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Property and liability insurance, $718,500. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it. On the general motion by Steve Curley, since we didn't change anything, I'm not sure whether we need a vote, but I'm sorry, by Linda Peterson to appropriate the sum of $60,200,000, well, whatever her motion was. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Okay. Yeah, okay, the chief has asked me for a lot of reasons, but primarily safety, is if people could move in, and so we can, this is a very nice problem to have everyone come in and be seated. So if people could move in, we should have enough seats for everybody, and I'll hold off in a few minutes for a moment just to allow everybody a chance to get seated. Thank you. They're cushioned seats, so you may be here a while. The chair will just mention as an aside that there is a bylaw that says that in a first instance, we're supposed to do a show of hands, and I think we'd all end up going to the chiropractor and having to raise our hand every single one of those votes. So the chair takes a little liberty with that bylaw and just does a voice vote. However, on most of the votes, we'll do a show of hands. So we're ready to get into, we'll do a couple articles and then break for the special. There is, on two of the petition articles, that there are speakers who would like to briefly address the meeting that are not from Pembroke. And so the chair would entertain a motion. We can take articles out of order. So one woman is from Boston, has young kids, just came from a long trip, and as a courtesy, we'd like to allow them to go home. So we'll have to take these articles up at some point. So the chair would entertain a motion to, Arthur Boyle moves that we take Article 28 out of order. It takes a 4/5. We'll take a show of hands. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? The ayes have it. So we'll take for immediate consideration, and I'm going to ask the same for Article 29. Article 28. And the chair recognizes Chief Rick Wall.
Good evening. There we go. How's that? You're going to be hearing a lot from me tonight. Move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $3,500 from free cash to fund a contract with the South Shore Women's Resource Center.
Is there a second? Chair, his second. The chair would ask, and this is a courtesy we normally extend to out-of-towners, but we do need your permission. It takes just a majority vote. Karen Fabrizio is someone who many of you know, formerly from Pembroke, who's associated with the South Shore Women's Resource Center. She has asked to speak, so I will ask the meeting for your permission. All those who would allow Karen to speak, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. The chair recognizes Karen Fabrizio.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me speak first. I'm from South Shore Women's Resource and Advocacy Center, formerly South Shore Women's Resource Center. We work directly with Pembroke Police Department to help victims of domestic violence. This last year, we've helped and serviced 132 victims in just the town of Pembroke, which was more than 2 or 3 a week. We offer free and confidential services. We have a 24-hour hotline. We work in the court systems, help people with restraining orders. We have a person at the Jordan Hospital. We have in-home counseling, in-service counseling, groups, and we're asking for $3,500. Normally, we're a line item. For some reason, we weren't this year, so I'm asking for the funds to be allocated to South Shore Resource and Advocacy Center, please.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in the motion by Chief Wall, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. We also have another person from out of town who,
Thank you.
who would like to speak on Article 30, I'm sorry, Article 29. Arthur Boyle moves that we take, the meeting take Article 29 out of order. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. Chair recognizes for Article 29, Chief Wall.
Move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $1,500 from free cash to fund a contract with the Violence Intervention and Protection Programs.
Is there a second? Chair hears second. Chair has Julie Keogh, who is the CEO of Health Imperatives, is the one who's come all the way down from Boston. And the chair would ask your permission to allow her to speak. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The chair recognizes Julia Kehoe.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you all for this opportunity. Health Imperatives is a nonprofit organization that serves about 30,000 people in southeastern Massachusetts, including Pembroke. We have a number of different health and human services programs. And in Pembroke, those programs include nutrition assistance, women, infants, and children, and the violence intervention and prevention programs that we're talking about tonight. We're here requesting the $1,500 to support those violence intervention and prevention, notably the sexual assault counseling program we have. And the reason it's so important that we request funding from each town in our area is that the state funds sexual assault counseling just by county. So there's only one authorized sexual assault counseling center that provides confidential services in Pembroke. And because our area is so big and the state funding is relatively limited, it's very difficult for us to be everywhere so everyone knows the services that we provide. So we try to raise additional funds from each municipality as well as from corporations, foundations, and individuals to not only provide sexual assault counseling support, helping people when they're assaulted at the hospital, working with the police, but also to do prevention. And so while we only served 4 people with counseling from Pembroke last year, we did serve over 100 people with our WIC program, which is nutrition assistance. So we know that those numbers don't make sense, and generally sexual assault is very underreported anyway, but we really want to make sure that we are working with South Shore Women's Resource Center, who we partner with at Jordan Hospital, as well as at the Harbor Health Center in North Plymouth, and the schools, and that we not only are letting people know about our 24/7 services, but that we're also doing some preventive work. And we used to do prevention mostly in colleges and high school for sexual assault, but we learned that it's absolutely critical to start much, much earlier. And so we recently designed a program starting with 4th graders, which is really around positive relationships, healthy relationships, anti-bullying, which we will, and bystander education, which we will believe will lead to a reduction in sexual assault. So we respectfully request your funding to help us support the town. And I also have information here I can leave with you. We're very open to doing business differently, and because we only have 3 satellites across Plymouth County, or actually Plymouth County and parts of Norfolk County, we want to come down, instead of just having people from Pembroke come to Plymouth, partner with schools or other organizations. So I have my information I'll leave at the front. If you have ideas on how we can be more responsive and partner with you, we'd be happy to hear those ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion made by Chief Wall, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Within your warrant is a copy of the consent agenda. The town passed a bylaw change several years ago when we changed the date and the time of the town meeting to allow the selectmen to put together a consent agenda. This is very common in many towns. And the consent agenda consists of items that are normally not subject for debate. This saves us a few minutes. So we have compiled a consent agenda. If you wish not to include any of these items in the consent agenda, please indicate, I'll mention each one, just say hold, and we'll take them separately. We'll put them back in the lottery system. But the chair would state that the chair cannot really recollect a time when there was any debate on any of these items, but that's not to preclude debate or questions if you had them. So the items on the consent agenda, and they are within your warrant, is Article 1, which is a routine matter to hear the reports of the town officers and committees, and I'll put in another plug for the town report, which is up front, which is very well done. Article 8, which authorizes the Board of Selectmen to accept state and federal grants. Article 9, which is lengthy, but it primarily establishes, which we have to do on an annual basis, the revolving accounts for certain purposes. Article 10, which authorizes the selectmen to enter into contracts with Mass DOT. And Article 32, which really doesn't have to be voted on, but it's our election, which is a Saturday. So, hearing no objection to taking these as one, Mr. Boyle moves that the town take Articles 1, 8, 9, 10, and 32 out of order, and that they be passed by consent in accordance with the motion shown on the consent agenda distributed this evening. It does take a 4/5. All those in favor of the motion? Is there a second? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. So now, we can go to the ballot. And the first item of business is Article 15. And the chair recognizes the Fire Chief, Michael Hill.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. I would like to move the
I don't think it's on,
authorization of
Mike.
hiring two firefighter
It's not on.
paramedics. Is it on?
Yeah, it isn't.
Hello? I gotta get closer. Can everybody hear me? I would like to move the authorization of hiring two firefighter paramedics for the fire department.
All right, just repeat it one more time slowly, Mike, so people can.
I would like to move the authorization, the hiring of two firefighter paramedics for the fire department.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Chair hears second. The chair recognizes Chief Hill.
I understand this is not exactly how it's written. However, through our many budget meetings, it has been pointed out to us that there are not funds for four. In my original proposal, I was going to pay for two out of the ambulance fund. This would cover base salary and a couple of benefits, i.e. their paramedic pay and holiday. Other costs cannot be covered from the ambulance fund due to the statute. I can defer to Mike Buckley, who can address those.
Chair recognizes Town Accountant Michael Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. If anybody who looks at the activity of the fire department can tell, the number of times that all 6 people on duty are out of the station at any one time is really alarming. The chief right now is asking for 2.
Yeah, could one of the tellers move that microphone up?
Is this any better?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. If you look at the activity logs of the fire department, you can tell that we don't have enough people to cover all these situations we have. We've grown, we're almost 20,000 people now. The chief now is asking for 2 more people. If you look at his staffing levels, look at his activity, you can make the argument that he needs either 4 or 8. What the chief is asking for tonight is the permission to hire the 2 as a beginning step. He has the funding in his ambulance fund to cover the salaries. What we need to do, the town administrator and the chief and I need to do in the Board of Selectmen between now and the summer is to figure out how to come up with the incidentals, the other things that it's going to take, the turnout gear, the health insurance, the FICA tax, that kind of thing.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Mary Beth Courtwright, Fairwood Drive. I just have a question that I think is really pertinent to any meeting we have, and could we find out from our town accountant how much money we actually have to spend this evening? And do we have a total on how much is being requested this evening? Because we just voted on $5,000. We don't even know if we have $5,000 to spend. Again, not speaking to the value of any of the articles, just so that we know in advance how much money we have to spend and what is the total being requested this evening of all the articles. Thank you.
Good question. The chair recognizes Mike Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We just voted a $60 million budget. We did vote 2 articles that weren't in the plan. I'll be perfectly honest with everybody. They totaled $5,000 out of a $60 million budget. $5,000 is not going to make a difference. We have a problem in Pembroke in that our employee benefit, particularly our health insurance costs, are rising at a rate that we can barely afford. And therefore, it really took everything we could do to fund the level of staffing we have this year going forward. The state has its own health insurance problems. Their level of funding has been stagnant for the past 10 years. If they had continued funding Pembroke's local aid where they did 10 years ago, we'd have an extra $3 million to spend. Thanks, Jim.
Chair recognizes Steve Curley from Advisory.
Mr. Moderator, one of the things it may have, as it was read by Linda in Article 3, is we're using $233,091 of free cash and $179,339 of the Silver Lake Escrow Fund to balance this year's operating budget. So really, we're operating at over a $400,000 deficit. The Silver Lake Escrow Fund has a balance in it of $155,000 after this year. We've used it in the past couple years. And I believe that we have a little under $400,000 left in free cash at this point. You know, and we do have the snow and ice to cover next year, although it hasn't been quite as bad this year. But we are already using deficit funding to do our current budget.
Is there any, the chair recognizes Matthew McNeely, formerly of Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My question would be to the chief. I just didn't hear an exact amount that he's looking for the 2 firefighters. Maybe he's just looking for permission to hire them with no finances at all raised and appropriated, but that would be my question.
Chair recognizes Chief Hill.
The sum that would be transferred from the ambulance fund will be $161,725. The rest of the monies I cannot account for, that would have to come from Mr. Buckley. The amount that would need to be funded for the 2 positions that I planned on transferring in the first place is $161,725.
Mr. Moderator, he should amend his motion to include the funding.
Well, the chair will state that the understanding is that this is an authorization to fund and not an actual funding of the positions. Is that correct? The town accountant is nodding his head. So this is not, these positions are not funded. It's just an authorization to hire them.
Correct.
But without the funding, he cannot
Chair
hire
recognizes Steve Curley from Advisory.
Mr. Moderator, through you, without the transfer from the ambulance fund, he doesn't have the money available to hire.
Well, from town meeting in the past, I believe it was 1983, I am the sole proprietor of the ambulance fund and can move the money around when I see fit. Hence, buying ambulances, buying supplies, paying for training. So if I am in control of the ambulance fund, why can I not then, if the positions are authorized, when it's appropriate, when we have the funding for gear and all the other incidentals that need to be funded from the town account, can I not just move that money over?
Chair recognizes Carol Dodge.
I can't imagine hiring firefighters that might get paid, that might not get paid, how they're going to get paid, how they're not going to get paid. I understand the fiscal crisis that we're in, but it isn't fair to pull a fire alarm and have nobody respond. We've had incidences that our department had nobody to cover. We need more firefighters. We need to, and we have to figure out how to fund them. I understand the ambulance fund can't authorize the payment of a salary, but I'm not the fiscal person. I watched my town grow. I've watched my fire department respond. We need to fund more firefighters. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion by Chief Hill? Seeing none, the chair recognizes Timothy Brennan from Advisory.
I just would like to remind townspeople that we do have to, I think Advisory and a lot of people here are in a tough position where we have to look at the reality of what the budget is offering us. And not only that, but we have to look 1 year and we have to look 2 years and 3 years into the future. And as things are right now, and in the year we stand right now, it is extremely tight, and in future years it is going to be even tighter. So to commit to funding something like this now with discussion on town meeting floor without a forward-looking plan in front of us just seems somewhat inappropriate.
Any further discussion? Chair recognizes Ben Bastianelli from the DPW.
Can someone explain to me how much money we're trying to fund and what we're trying to do? I'm a little confused at this point. The article says 332,000 for firefighters, paramedics, but I'm hearing 2, I'm hearing 116. What does the article want to say?
Chair recognizes Chief Hill.
The original article was for 4 firefighter paramedics. $725,000 of that was going to be transferred from the ambulance fund. Another $140,000 was going to be asked for from the general fund. Excuse me, 170. 140 for salaries and benefits that are in my budget, and 30,000 to outfit them with protective clothing and their first contractual uniforms. So that overall cost in the original article is what I asked for. Through several budget meetings over the spring, it was enforced on us that there was no more free cash, there was no more money, we had a balanced budget. Anybody who wanted extra, tough luck. I had an avenue to pay for 2 from the ambulance fund that supports it yearly. I have the figures to do it. I would like 2 people. 2 people is 25% of the 8 people who were approved on this floor in 2012 that somehow got swept back into the ocean. My people are responding alone quite often. I went to a baby choking yesterday by myself. We needed to rely on Halifax, who sent their chief and their shift commander over. Everybody says, well, Chief, you don't have that many fires. You're right, we don't have that many fires because we have an awesome fire prevention program, and we're back in the schools with fire education. Our problem isn't the big fire. Our problem is the multiple calls, okay? You people are 20,000 strong. We're 5 out the door. The madness has to end, folks. 2 is a good start, and it's a minimal cost to the taxpayer.
Any further? Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none. Oh, yes, Chair recognizes.
Forestry. You know, if you look at the Article 14, even though we're doing 15, and you take the figures.
Yeah, the chair would ask you just speak. Sorry about that.
You take the figures for the both. It comes down to $449,449. How that ever come out that way? But someday you're gonna have to pay this anyway. You look at North Pembroke. You got 1 guy up there all the time. It's a joke. It's about time the town started spending some money. No one likes to pay taxes, myself included. But it's about time some of these guys in this town realize that you got to have guys to help you. You need your firemen, you need your policemen. This is one time I think you're going to have to bite the bullet and do something about it. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Joel Bard from Copeland and Page, only for the purposes of just kind of refining the motion a little bit.
Mr. Moderator, Joel Bard from now KP Law.
KP Law.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to suggest, because there does seem to be some confusion, and Chief, if you don't mind, to actually state the funding source right out. I'm not familiar with the town meeting vote that you mentioned, but it would be highly unorthodox to have such a fund. So I'm going to suggest this, and Chief, it's your motion, so certainly you can accept it or reject it. But just hear what I'm suggesting. Your language originally moved to authorize the hiring of 2 additional firefighter/paramedics, and then I'm suggesting this language, and to transfer $161,725 from the ambulance fund for said purpose.
I do not have a problem with that.
So there's no objection. Chief will withdraw his original motion and substitute the motion that's just been stated by Joel Bard. The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the revised motion, which authorizes a funding source and a dollar amount? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted.
Thank you very much, everyone.
And that's the way it works. Article 26. Chair recognizes John Brown from Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Move to appropriate and/or reserve from community preservation annual revenues the following amounts to be used for the committee's administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2017. Appropriations for fiscal year 18, estimated revenues from historic resources reserve, $35,000. From fiscal year 18, estimate revenues for community housing reserve, $35,000. From fiscal year 18, estimated revenues for open space reserves, $35,000. From fiscal year 18, estimated revenues for committee administrative expenses, $12,000, and further appropriate any remaining balance of funds as the termination of the 2017 annual town meeting for Community Preservation Fund fiscal year 18, annual revenues and annual budget reserve.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion by John Brown, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. The Chair would like to take a moment to recognize our representative in the Great and General Court, Representative Josh Cutler, who is very good about attending these meetings and standing in the back. Thank you for coming, Representative. Bring us more money. Article 1, which is already... What's that? Oh, yeah, thank you. All right. Good point. The Chair will entertain a motion to recess the annual so that we can go to the special town meeting.
So moved.
The motion's been made. Is it seconded? No discussion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The annual town meeting stands in recess. And we will now go to the special town meeting warrant. Article 2 is the first item of business. And the chair recognizes the chair, correct, of the Pembroke School Committee, Michael Tropiano.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that $900,000 is appropriated for the installation of a track and turf field at Pembroke High School, including the payment of costs incidental and relative thereto that meet this appropriation. $200,000 shall be transferred from athletic revolving, and the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow $700,000 under Chapter 44 of the General Laws or any other enabling authority, that the school committee is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry this out, and that any premium received by the town upon sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less such any premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes may be applied to the payment of cost approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such cost by a like amount, while any bonds or notes issued under the authority of this vote will be general obligations of the town. It is the town's intent that the debt service related to such bonds or notes be paid from athletic revolving in the first instance.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Chair recognizes Mike Tropiano.
Thank you. Hopefully it'll be shorter than the motion. The Pembroke High School turf was installed initially 13 years ago when the high school was renovated. The life expectancy of a turf field generally is about 10 to 15 years. So we're a little bit over halfway through the far end, or closer to the far end of that. I can't bend over. Really close to the end life expectancy of a turf field. Our field gets a tremendous amount of use by our high school athletes, over 1,200 hours a year in the fall and spring, plus many community groups such as youth football, soccer, and lacrosse. A turf field is much more viable for us than a grass field because we have capital cost with the installation of the turf, the installation of irrigation, and the maintenance cost, as well as mowing, fertilization, et cetera, over the life of that field. Also, we know the prime growing seasons for us are spring and fall when we get the most use out of it. So what we've been doing is, through the savings of the athletic revolving account, that gave us the $200,000 to start funding the 10-year note of the borrowing for this new project. The funding we would pay off the remaining $700,000 would come from a contribution from our youth sports partnership, some money that would come from an increase in user fees for our high school athletes. It would also come from the realization of some energy savings throughout the district, and a smaller contribution from our operating budget. The use of the field isn't just limited to athletics. We also use it in the summer for our band camp so that the band, marching band, can get ready for their performances during football events and parades, as well as, again, we use it with our athletes to host all of our home track and field events. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I ask for favorable action on Article 2.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Chair recognizes Matt Furlong from the Board of Selectmen.
Hi, everyone. Pembroke and our athletes deserve a usable and safe track and field to use, and this bill would provide just that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, this does require a 2/3 because it's an authorization to borrow, so we'll try it with a show of hands. All those in favor of the motion by Mike Tropiano, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. And I declare it so voted, having reached the necessary 2/3 necessary for passage. Article 3 on the special. And the chair recognizes Chief Wall.
Mr. Moderator, move that $12,500 be appropriated to purchase next-generation 911 equipment, and to meet this appropriation, transfer the sum of $12,500 from the overlay surplus.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. You'll notice the chief saved us $12,500. The chair recognizes Chief Wall.
Mr. Moderator, the police station and the fire station are going through an update right now for the 911 system from the old Vesta Palace system from the 80s and 90s into the digital age with next generation General Dynamics. So the equipment's already installed. There's a few incidentals that we haven't paid for, but we're able to do it for a little bit less at the fire station than we anticipated. In 2 weeks, we're going to know all the bugs are out of it, and we'll be online fully. But yeah, we saved you some money.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Chief Wall, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 4. And the chair recognizes once again Chief Wall.
Mr. Moderator, this article was submitted to purchase an unmarked cruiser. I'm going to ask, because of the funding issue, that we take no action on that, but I would like the opportunity to explain why. In my department, we have minimum of three cars on the road at all times. And these cruisers operate 24 hours a day. They operate all three shifts, and they get about 45,000 miles a year on them. The way the cars are designed now, we can't afford to keep them with over 100,000 miles because once out of warranty, all the repairs are extremely expensive. We're really trying to get 2 cruisers a year in the capital part of the budget. I've been asking for this. This is my 5th budget. I need 2 cruisers every spring. Usually I come back in the fall and I ask you for cruisers. The one that I got last fall just went online tonight. I finally got the computer glitches out of it, but if you go in the fall to get a cruiser, they're out. They're specially made. They only make so many. Then you got to wait till spring to buy them. So the cruisers I wanted to get rid of now have even more miles on it. My front 2 line cars both had rejection stickers last week. I had to take them up to Ford and get all the bugs taken out of them. Again, that's pretty expensive. So we're trying to keep the maintenance costs down by having a constant supply, 2 cruisers a year in the spring, in the budget. Don't have to ask for it every time. Just put it in there. It's what we need to do. We use them more than 3 years, but it's hard miles. And you put over 120,000 miles on a car that's been idling its whole life, it's not good, and the repairs are very expensive. So I'm going to ask that we take no motion on this because we don't have any money, but I will see you in the fall, and we will be taking care of business. And then hopefully next spring, again, we've kicked this can down the road. This is my 5th budget. I need to have 2 cruisers put in the yearly budget in the spring, and there shouldn't even be a discussion. It's just what we need to do to operate. So thank you very much.
The chief has made, and I didn't hear a second, a motion to take no action. Is there a second? Chair has a second. Now, normally, the motion to take no action is something that we use when everyone is in agreement that we are not going to move forward in a particular article. However, the decision is yours. So on the motion to take no action on Article 4, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 6 is the next item of business on the special. And the chief recognizes Selectman
Okay.
Bill Bolter,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't see
Got
your
it?
name. Chair recognizes Bill Bolter.
Good evening, everybody. We move that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain on such items and conditions as the board deems appropriate in the general municipal purposes, the parcel of land located at 140 Center Street containing a total of approximately .25 acres shown on the assessors map C9, parcel 35, and owned by the Department of the Massachusetts Veterans of Foreign War of the United States, Inc., and enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary for the convenience to officiate in foregoing purposes.
Is there a second?
The Pembroke Police Boys Club.
Is there a second? Chair has second. Chair recognizes former Selectman, Chair recognizes Bill Bolter.
Just to let you know that it was never really transferred when we started looking over the deeds and all that from way back in 1979 when the Boys Club took it over. So after we researched the deeds and all that, it still belonged to the VFW hall. So we petitioned the VFW to go to Boston and come up with the paperwork and transfer it back over to the town.
Chair recognizes former Selectman Bob DiMarzo.
Thank you. I've got some concerns about this article. We had a meeting of the Finance Committee 2 weeks ago and just was emphasized that the town has $75 million of unfunded liabilities coming up in 10 years, money that we do not have. We don't do a great job of maintaining the buildings we own right now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. We're not doing it. We have a building that I believe has had some community preservation money approved to repair it, but the building is in serious, serious conditions. The foundation is falling apart, windows are broken, it needs a new roof, siding. It is not handicapped accessible by any means. Some people have told me, well, it's a historic building, so it doesn't have to be handicapped acceptable because you can say it's a historic building. That doesn't mean, and Liberty says it's not true, which is good. Either way, it does not mean that it's right, that we have a public building that for athletic events that is owned by the town and people can't use it. To retrofit that would be very, very expensive. We're losing youth hockey June 1st. We have income that we will not have for heating and so on. We have space down there, if anything, that would be handicapped accessible. The bingo hall, it could be a large spot. So I'm not sure if it's going to be prudent to take this over, or should the town be in the business of funding a, I don't want to call it a business. It serves a good purpose, but there are a lot of other groups that serve a good purpose and need space as well. So I think we really need to consider, can we afford to take this building over, and are there other uses that, places that they can go?
Chair recognizes Bill Bolton.
Just to give you a little history on it, Pembroke Police Boys Club took this building over in 1979. We've never asked for a dime from the town since 1979. We've repaired the heating system, updated the electrical, put in beams inside of it for structural purposes. We've done as much as we possibly could do to the building over the years. We've actually put in new windows in it since we've had it. We've done a new roof on it 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago. We've paid for everything on the building, you know, for the last almost 40 years. And now we're just receiving some money from the town, from community preservation to do over and, you know, make it look a lot better in the center of town because of we don't really have a lot of money to be putting into the building. So the community preservation, you'll see it this summer, that it'll really look nice.
Chair recognizes Bob DiMarzo.
There was one other issue, or a couple others. There's very broad-based language as to how the selectmen are going to obtain this, including the word purchase. Is there any guarantee that this is free to the town? Are we going to be paying for it? Also, has there been a 21E environmental exam done of the building? Have the building inspectors looked at the building and given their opinion?
Chair recognizes Town Administrator Ed Thorne.
You know, for the public's information, I have a letter here from the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Please allow this correspondence to serve as official notification that the Department of Massachusetts Veterans of Foreign Wars has no ownership and claims no ownership on the property at 140 Center Street in Pembroke, Massachusetts. So officially, the VFW claims no ownership in the building, and so this is a formality that Town Council has requested the town meeting accept this building.
Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, it does require a 2/3. We'll try it with a show of hands. All those in favor of the motion by Bill Bolter on Article 7, please raise your hand. Article 6, I'm sorry. Article 6, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted, having reached the necessary 2/3 needed for passage. Article 7 is the next item of business. And the chair recognizes Arthur Boyle from the Board of Selectmen.
Bill doesn't know his own strength putting the microphone back in the stand. I'd move that the town transfer for the care, custody, and control of the parcel of town-owned land located at Bartlett Street, shown as Assessor Map Number B2, Parcel 3115, described in the deed recorded with the Plymouth District Registry of Deeds in Book 5671, page 392, containing .055 acres more or less from the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of conveyance, and to authorize the board to convey a fee simple interest or any portion thereof upon such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems to be in the best interest of the town, and to execute any and all sales agreements and documents to effectuate said sale.
Is there a second? Second. Chair hears second. Any discussion on this matter? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion by Arthur Boyle on Article 7, please raise your, this requires a 2/3, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted, having reached the necessary 2/3 needed for passage. And the next item of business is Article 5. And the chair recognizes Steve Curley from Advisory.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the sum of $360,000 is appropriated for water system improvements associated with the Route 14 corridor project, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $360,000 from water surplus.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor of the motion by Steve Curley, which just requires a simple majority, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Last item of business is Article 1 for the special. The chair recognizes the chair of Advisory, Linda Peterson.
Mr. Moderator, move that the sum of $160,000 is appropriated to supplement fiscal year 2017 appropriations, and to fund these supplementals, that $16,050 be transferred from overlay surplus to the account of the Board of Selectmen general expenses, $6,250 be transferred from overlay surplus to the account for Town Hall general expenses, $15,000 be transferred from overlay surplus to the account of police general expenses, $6,000 be transferred from free cash to the account for DPW general expenses, $111,700 be transferred from overlay surplus to the account for health insurance, $5,000 be transferred from overlay surplus to the account for property and liability insurance.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? These are fairly routine transfers. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Linda Peterson, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Mr. Boyle moves that the special town meeting be dissolved. Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The special town meeting is resolved. We'll go back to the annual town meeting. And the next item of business is Article 11. Back to the annual. Chair recognizes Tim Brennan.
Move that the town amend the general bylaws as most recently amended by inserting a new article, 9-A, Consolidated Department of Municipal Inspections, section 1 through 9, as printed in the 2017 annual town meeting warrant.
Is there a second? Second. Chair hears second. Chair recognizes Tim Brennan, who the chair might add is also a member of the Town Government Study Committee. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Yep. So about 4 years ago, the town of Pembroke had a desire to figure out what we could do to better organize the structure of our town government. We asked the Department of Revenue come in and do a study on the town and present us with some recommendations on what we can do to improve our efficiency. And what they said was their ultimate conclusion was that we do not have a structure of government that is can capably handle a town of our size, and they offered some recommendations. And over the past 4 or 5 years, the Town Government Study Committee has taken a task to figure out what we can do to to drive some efficiencies in the process and reorganize in a way that we can kind of appropriately act in the future. So, you know, one way we saw of doing this, shorter term, we were looking for where can we kind of drive this operational efficiency into the government and into how we're organized. And one way to do that is to consolidate the administration of inspectional services within Pembroke. So I think it's kind of a great first step in the direction of strengthening the organization of the town government. This not only it makes it easier for people working within Town Hall to do their jobs, and it also makes it easier for businesses and residents in the community to come in when they have inspectional needs within the community. So, and I think, you know, especially when we are in a fiscally tight environment, when we look for ways that can drive efficiency into the system without actually costing us anything, this is a great step in that direction, and I hope people vote favorably.
Chair recognizes Gail McSweeney from the Board of Health.
Moderator, I have a couple of things that are really concerned to the Board of Health. In Section 3 on this article, the Director of the Municipal Inspectors, acting as an ex officio capacity, shall coordinate all inspections functions of the following committees: the Board of Health, Conservation Committee, and the Zoning Boards of Appeals. The use of this language effectively eliminates the authority of each board in its term of administrating and following through with the inspection procedures. In Article 4, the Director of the Municipal Inspectors shall appoint officers carrying out inspections. The decision of what the subject of to approve of the Board of Selectmen. This is removing the functions normally executed by the elected by the town residents. This ruling, in effect, will take the authority away from the Board of Health, where we will have absolutely no ability and no information. We will be completely taken out of our agents' inspections, the accountability of septic, food, and animal inspections. This all follows through with when we have food inspections and there are problems with re-inspections. The board will never be appraised of this again. This is a new position. It doesn't seem to have been appointed any form of salary. I don't understand how this is going to be funded. And the Director of the Municipal Inspection is under the Selectmen. This is eliminating the ability for the board to be able to work effectively with knowing what's going on inside of the Board of Health. And I thank you for my time.
Chair recognizes Tim Brennan.
So as far as it being a new position, the town administrator would assume the role of the head of the Department of Municipal Inspection, so there's no cost. And part of what we were trying to do here is boards, we think it's extremely important. We're trying to separate policy-making boards and day-to-day administration of professional municipal departments. When we think about people working every single day in Town Hall, it's difficult for them to be responsible to a volunteer board that isn't there every single day. So we think that's partially, that's just how a professional organization operates. Also, when we think about taking away, the board is still responsible for hiring and firing and the ultimate firing of the health agent. So none of that changes. What the Department of Municipal Inspection head is responsible for is the hiring of professional staff, the administration of their day-to-day duties, and to hopefully further drive synergies and cross-training within Town Hall.
Chair recognizes Arthur Boyle from the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mrs. McSweeney couldn't be any more wrong than she is in making this position out to be something it's not. In my other life, I'm the Director of Inspectional Services in the town of Holbrook, and we went to this about 3 years ago. We've saved money in overtime, we've saved money in vacation time, we've done the cross-training that Tim talked about. We've managed the department to get more exposure to the public so that there are people that are manning the phones between 12 and 1, and we're open 40 hours a week or thereabout, and it's worked out tremendously. So I would endorse this wholeheartedly, and Tim, I think you're right on track.
Chair recognizes former Selectman Paul Dwyer.
Mr. Moderator, I agree that this article has a great potential of creating efficiencies within the departments. What I do have an issue with is it says that the Board of Selectmen will appoint the Director of Municipal Inspections, which means it doesn't have to be the town administrator. I'd prefer if the article said it would be the town administrator who would oversee these departments and these staffs.
Chair recognizes Gail McSweeney from the Board of Health.
According to Chapter 43, Section 13, this gives the Director of the Municipal Inspections to appoint the inspector if there is no other provision by the bylaw, and there is no other provision by the bylaw. So at that point, we will have no authority to appoint a health agent that will follow under the selectmen if this passes.
Chair recognizes Bob DiMarzo.
Thank you. Having served 9 years as selectman, planning board, other elected positions in many committees, I see nothing but positive gains from this. Any government, town government, and everything else has its efficiencies and inefficiencies. This will do nothing but provide more efficiency to town government and far better customer service to the public that deserves it, and I think we should pass it.
Chair recognizes Becky Coletta from the Planning Board.
Hi, Becky Coletta, 23 Verna Hall Drive. I just want to clarify one thing. It was stated that the boards would be involved in the hiring and firing, and I just want to clarify that in Section 4 it says that the board, subject to the favorable recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, the Director of Municipal Inspections shall appoint the personnel, provided that the appointment of personnel who will staff the Office of the Commissioner of Buildings, Health Agent, and Conservation Agents shall also be subject to the respective recommendations of those officials. There's nothing in this article about the oversight and the potential firing of any officials by the respective boards. I just want to make sure that people understand that.
Chair recognizes this gentleman, and not previously haven't spoken. Well, all right. Chair recognizes Tim Brennan from.
I'd ask that either Mr. Thorne or Town Council comment on hiring and firing. This is something we discussed prior to the meeting, and to whether or not the Department of Municipal Inspections can hire professional staff.
Chair recognizes Town Council Joel Bard.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I'll draw your attention to Section 3. Am I in the right section? No, I'm sorry. It'd be Section 4. So let me read the first two lines. Subject to the favorable recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, the Director of Municipal Inspections shall appoint all other personnel necessary to staff the department. So the intention here is that the director would appoint the staff, in other words, the support staff, and not necessarily the professional staff. Right now, there is a Board of Health agent and there is a conservation agent. There's not a town planner right now, but if there were a town planner, those three positions, being professional positions, would be appointed by the respective boards. And the focus here is on staff, and as Selectman Doyle mentioned, to keep the offices staffed, in other words, through the lunch hour, covering for vacations and that sort of thing, not necessarily the staff at the professional level.
Chair recognizes the gentleman in the blue. If you could just state your name and.
Scott Wilson, 6 Lee Terrace. I'm also on the Town Government Study Committee. We've talked to, this isn't something new. This is something that's been in Mass General Law for a while. Many towns have done it successfully. We've looked at it, and it comes down to two things. We want to be more efficient, and we want to provide better customer service, and this does it. You know, it's clear that there's not daily coordination, not daily supervision. You know, the folks in Town Hall that work there want to have clear direction. They want to be able to rely on someone else to cover their work when they're not there. People who come into Town Hall would like to come in once, get their work, their business done, and leave. So the key behind this is we want to provide better customer service, and we want to do it efficiently, and this does it. Many other towns have done it, and it's worked in many other towns. Thank you.
Chair recognizes, gentlemen, could you state your name?
My name is Will Tavares. I live on Lady Slipper Circle. There's been some back and forth on whether or not the Director of Municipal Inspections would, in fact, hire the positions such as the health agent. According to Chapter 43C, Section 13C of the Mass General Laws, if there is no provision in the municipal bylaws that the Director of Municipal Inspections would appoint the officers that would conduct the inspections for the department. So that's just a point that I wanted to make.
Chair recognizes Libby Bates.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm speaking as a member of the Pembroke Board of Assessors, and while that department is not specifically mentioned in this bylaw change, in Section 2, the 3 departments that seem to be the focal point of this change are mentioned, but it then says "and others." And just so you understand, the assessor's office does hundreds of inspections every year. They inspect every building permit. They, under the requirements of the Department of Revenue, have to go out on a 9-year cycle and inspect every single property in town, at least once every 9 years. We have staff within the Office of the Board of Assessors whose job it is to go out and do these functions. And the purpose of those functions is to make sure that the data that we have on real estate and personal property as well in town is updated and accurate. I guess my concern is, while this bylaw change is focusing on health, conservation, and zoning, the language in Section 2 does not preclude it expanding to other departments. And under no circumstances would I recommend that anybody except professional assessing people go out and do those kinds of inspections. And they should be under, and are currently, under the direction of the chief assessor, as they should be. So whether we can do an amendment, take that word "others" out, it might solve or answer the problem as to the position itself and its impact on zoning, health, and conservation. That's another whole story. I'm speaking just related to how it may impact the assessor's office, and I have great concern about that. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Jim McCollum.
Jim McCollum, High Street. I'm concerned with point number 3, maintenance of all records related to inspections in a central place. Does that mean the Board of Health records and the other records are all going to be removed from where they are currently held and placed in a central place and managed by who? The Board of Health has someone in the office every hour that the town hall is open. Those records are readily available. They don't need to be removed from there and placed in some central place operated by somebody who isn't familiar with the Board of Health records.
Chair will recognize the health agent, Lisa Cullity.
So to the prior speakers, Mr. McCollum couldn't be more wrong. There is only 2 full-time staff in the Board of Health currently. As most of you are aware, I am a field agent. I don't spend a lot of time in that office. Therefore, whenever the secretary is out sick, needs to assist one of her children, taking vacation or personal time, that office is closed. That office is inaccessible to the public. Anyone can tell you that's gotten a building permit in this town, the same thing applies in the building department. When that secretary is out, assistant is out or unavailable on vacation or personal time, that office is closed. This creates an enormous problem for anyone that wants some simple answers about their property or a simple building permit. There is no reason why the files on a property cannot be merged. It's been done in at least 10 South Shore communities. Why is that so important, and why should you as residents care so much? I'll tell you. If you get conflicting information from 2 different departments regarding your property, you're not getting accurate information. And if you go to one or the other without the knowledge to go to the second department, you could be acting on poor information. Also, without those departments sharing that information, you're not getting the best information out to you, and that's what every homeowner deserves. So at the end of the day, we have a choice. You can make it so that someone seeking information on a property, whether that be a realtor assisting with a purchase, someone looking to make a purchase, or someone looking to make improvements to their own property, can go to one office, get all those answers: plumbing, electrical, building, and Board of Health. And the only way we do that is to cross-train the only 3 full-time staff, I'm sorry, conservation, I forgot them, and we can cross-train those staffs, and now the person can come in and get access to all that information. This will not include sensitive medical records for obvious reasons that are maintained by our nurses. This is for the quote-unquote property files only. So if you would like more accurate and better service and to walk into a town hall where you can access information on any property you'd like and to guarantee that office is open, the only way to do it is this article. Or we can continue going the way we are, change nothing, and provide poorer service. And when people walk in disappointed that they cannot get assistance, I am terribly sorry, but we've done the best we can.
Chair. Chair recognizes Becky Coletta.
Hello. Becky Coletta, 23 Vernon Hall Drive again. Well, I'm not opposed to the idea of trying to improve the efficiency of these departments, and I think to some extent the Board of Selectmen already has a substantial amount of authority over the Conservation Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, most certainly, because those are both departments where they appoint the members of the ZBA and the Conservation Commission. So I think that some of this can already be done under existing law. I respectfully disagree with Town Council. I do not believe that this is limited to the staff. I do not think that that's all this covers. It goes on to talk about in performing duties where approval of the Board of Health is statutorily required, the health agent may be directed by the Director of Municipal Inspections, but any final decisions will be made. It goes on, but the inference is that this Section 4 covers people like the health agent. And I don't think that you can fairly read this to say that it doesn't when you look at the ambiguity of the first paragraph. So I respectfully disagree with Town Council. I think this could have been worded better. If we do it, I think we should take a look at it in the future and see about tightening it up.
Is there any further? The chair recognizes Joel Bard.
Mr. Moderator, Joel Bard, just to be clear, the question I was asked had to do with appointments. In other words, who's the appointing authority? And that's where you look to Section 3, which, I'm sorry, again, it's Section 4. Subject to the favorable recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, the Director of Municipal Inspections shall appoint all other personnel necessary to staff the department. So that's the first paragraph in Section 4. And then the previous speaker then went on to refer to the subsequent paragraphs in Section 4, which actually talk about the day-to-day operation. And again, not appointment, but day-to-day operation. And there it says, in performing duties where approval of the Board of Health is statutorily required, the health agent may be directed by the Director of Municipal Inspections, but any final decisions will be made by the Board of Health. And you'll see the next section has parallel language for the Conservation Commission agent, and again, any final decisions will be made by the Board of Health. So in other words, you have a structure here where that first paragraph in Section 4 talks about how the appointments are made, and the appointments are made for staff, office staff, which is, and several comments have been made to that effect. The health agent spoke about it a short while ago about the day-to-day operation. And so it's that staff that this is talking about having the new director appoint, but the substantive decisions are made with some direction from the new director who would be in town hall, but any substantive follow-up, if need be, comes from actually the boards, the appointing boards.
Chair recognizes the gentleman to my...
Dan Pelletier, West Elm Street. Motion to take action under the article, please.
Move the question, is that, okay. So, just for clarification purposes, the motion to move the question, which means we end debate, we go right to it, is most always in order. Can't do it at the very start. But the chair doesn't allow it to be shouted from the floor, or the chair doesn't allow it to someone who addresses the meeting and then move the question. It's like, shutting the door after you've said your word and shutting everyone else off. So the motion's been properly made. It is non-debatable. All those in favor of moving the question, which means we'll go right to the vote, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it. On the main motion by Timothy Brennan, which takes a simple majority, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 19.
The planning board would like to hold this until you just called Article 19?
Yes.
And we'd
Chair
like to hold it
recognizes
until...
Becky Coletta from the Planning Board.
We'd like to just hold that until Article 18 comes up so that we can hear them together?
So the motion has been made to hold Article 19 until after Article 20, is that correct? 18, okay, 18. So that does take a 4/5. All those in favor of holding this article, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted.
Mr. Moderator, I would
Chair-
ask the meeting now if we could take Article 18 at this point out of order.
Well, that's proper.
I mean, they certainly can make the decision, but 19 was just pulled and they want it after 18, so I'm just
Okay.
asking if we can do 18 now.
Mr. McNeely moves, and the motion's been seconded, right? Moves that we take Article 18, and then, of course, Article 19. It would be after that. All those in favor of the motion, it requires a 4/5, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The motion is lost. Next item, excuse me, is Article 16. Chair recognizes Chief Michael Hill.
Mr. Moderator, in light of the town's fiscal endeavors, I would agree with the unfavorable action, but I will be back in the fall.
Move to take no action, Article
Correct.
16. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this, on the chief's motion to take no action on Article 16? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 23.
Mr. Moderator?
Chair recognizes Library Director Deborah Wall.
In light of some further discussion that needs to be taken and the town's fiscal situation, I would like to move that we take no action on Article 23.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Deborah Wall to take no action on Article 23, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 8. Oh, that's one of the consent. Okay, we've done that. Thank you. Article 28, which we've already done as well. Article 4. Chair recognizes Tim Brennan from Advisory.
Move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $1,963,229 from water revenue to fund the fiscal year 18 Water Enterprise Fund as shown in Appendix B of this warrant.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 3, which we've done. Article 7. Chair recognizes Stephen Walsh, Advisory.
Move to take no action on Article 7.
Ultimately, your decision. All those in favor of the motion to take no action on Article 7, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 9, which was on the consent. Okay. Article 31. Article 31, the chair recognizes the petitioner on this article, Carolyn Crosley.
Mr. Moderator, move to amend the Town of Pembroke bylaws, Article 23, miscellaneous, by adding a Section 25, right to farm, as printed in the 2017 annual town warrant.
Motion's been made and seconded. The chair recognizes Carolyn Crosley.
Okay, thank you. According to the assessor's office, there were 27 farms under 61A in Pembroke in 2006. Today, there are only 19. Our town is losing a valuable part of our small town appeal. Many of us moved here because we valued the open space, the charm, and the small town feel. The ability to take a walk in your neighborhood and see horses in the field, or buy fresh eggs and just pick vegetables from a roadside stand is a rare occurrence in many of the towns and cities in Massachusetts, but in Pembroke, it's very common. Our local farms provide a place for our children to go to learn to ride. They can learn how food is grown, they can pet a baby lamb, they can plant a seedling, take a hayride, pick a pumpkin, buy a Christmas tree, purchase honey, fresh eggs, and vegetables. Our local farms help maintain our open space, and they care for and maintain the historic stone walls that border their fields. When a farm is sold, it generally does not remain a farm. That is evident in the statistics. The developer will generally turn the farm into a development of single-family homes, condominiums, or an apartment complex. In any case, that open space is lost forever. To date, 139 towns in Massachusetts have adopted the right to farm bylaw. These towns include Marshfield, Duxbury, Halifax, Kingston, Carver, Plymouth, and Middleborough. There are more and more seeking to adopt this bylaw each year. Local farms and open space are part of the historic value of Pembroke and the reason many of us moved here. It's important that we encourage those still here to stay. The right to farm bylaw will not cost the town any money, but we will reap many rewards. I encourage you to vote in favor of this bylaw. Thank you.
Mr. Dodge.
Chair recognizes Doc Akabuchi.
I couldn't not stand up as the founder and owner of the 73-acre nature park, which technically speaking is a farm under Chapter 61A. And open space and farmland generally provides us with fresh air to breathe, it cleanses our water supply, and it provides us with mental and physical health opportunities. And it costs very, very little compared to inhabited land. So I could not fail to stand up and endorse this proposal. Thank you.
Chair recognizes our Chief Assessor, Kathy Salmon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, just a little information as you consider this article. The previous speaker was correct in stating something about, we call it 61A. This particular article refers to a right to farm. At the beginning of the article, it says, there are other laws on the books in Massachusetts that give farmers the right to farm. I won't speak to those. Those are in the article, and hopefully everybody has looked those up and formed an opinion on them. But it's important to note there are other laws in Mass General Law, Chapter 61, 61A, 61B. Those all provide landowners an opportunity to hang on to their land by them agreeing to keep the land either in open space, farming, or in a forest management plan. And if they agree to do that, then they have substantial discounts on their taxes. That is very different than what is being proposed, and I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. We do have approximately 50 landowners in town that are in those Chapter 61, 61A, 61B. The farm properties need a minimum of 5 acres to qualify under that. Of those 50 landowners, it covers approximately 1,400 acres are in those programs in Pembroke. And instead of being valued at approximately $33 million, they're discounted down to a value of around $10 million. So they're receiving substantial savings. That's the whole point of those 60, 61A, 61B. My guess is the intent of this article of right to farm was to cover those properties. My guess is that's what the intent of this is. But that's not what this covers. This covers every property in town. This covers every property in every subdivision, whether you have 10 acres or 5 acres or a half acre. This covers every single property because there is no limit on the size of the properties that have this right to farm. So that's important to understand and to not confuse when people are talking about we want farmland and we want to protect farmland. This isn't just isolating in on what we think of as the 10, 20 acre farms that have been here forever. This doesn't address that. And my second guess is one of the intents of this was so that these people that have been farming for a number of years and just want to continue farming don't have to deal with the complaints of a new subdivision coming in and saying, hey, I hear the tractor, or I smell the farm smells, or all of the things that you would do in normal farming. My guess is the intent of this is to try to push back some of those complaints. But my fear is that because it now applies to every single piece of land, your complaints will actually, very likely, could go up, because now you're giving the ability to farm, and in the language it says farm anytime, day or night, weekdays, weekends, holidays. And so if you're doing that everywhere in town, I think that the consequence is not going to be what the intent would be. So if I may, I would like to make a motion to amend the article. And I would like to insert language to Section 2, definition of the farm, where it currently says any parcel or parcels of land or water bodies. My motion is to insert the words containing a minimum of 5 acres. That's the only amendment that I have, simply inserting the words in the definition of what is a farm to add the words containing a minimum of 5 acres. And I hope that by putting that amendment in, we can address what I think the intent was, which is to protect the farms, to protect the open space, but then not inadvertently cause additional problems in additional areas. So I make that motion, Mr. Moderator.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? We have a copy. Chair recognizes
Girl in the flower shirt.
the girl with the...
Sheila Schreiner, 409 Washington Street. And so actually to speak against that amendment, 71As actually can be as small as 2 acres because of new state laws that have been passed in the recent years. So that would actually exempt some of those 71As potentially that are listed, that have state laws protecting them. I also would like to point out, if you look at the article, Section 4 and also Section 5 include language that the farmer would have to disclose what they are farming. And then there's also a way to have disputes settled. So as a neighbor to someone who is farming, which yes is a very broad term, you still have a voice. And it still requires the farmer to go through bylaws that are currently on the books. So it's not changing any of the existing bylaws. Those bylaws are staying the same. So things like livestock permits would still have to be obtained. Okay, so we have that process. Inspections have to be done. So farmers would not be exempt from that. Farming is not just livestock. As it was introduced to you guys, farming includes beekeepers. Farming includes, fresh eggs, fruits, vegetables, orchards. So it's a large encompassing term. Aquaculture is an up-and-coming method of farming. So fish tank can be included in farming. So I just would like you guys to consider that amendment, that has a huge impact, because many of us do not have 5 acres to do our farming, and then to not be allowed to farm and to provide food for our family or extra income to our family could be detrimental.
Chair recognizes next speaker, if you can state your name.
Tracy Barron, Chapel Street. I would oppose the 5-acre amendment as well. I have 0.93 acres, and I have bees, and I have chickens. I have had no complaints. I don't see how 5 acres would be feasible for somebody like myself who wants to continue what I'm doing peacefully on my own property. I don't see how eggs or honey could be a nuisance to anybody. So I would just basically like to reiterate that 5 acres, I think, would be not feasible for the everyday citizen of this town who would simply like to do something like that on their own property.
Chair recognizes Jim McCollum.
Jim McCollum, High Street. I concur with the previous speaker. There are neighbors of ours who have chickens and bees and sell honey on the side of the road and sell fresh eggs on the side of the road. Would they now become outlawed since they don't have 5 acres?
Chair recognizes Libby Bates.
This is really kind of an interesting discussion, and I'm a member of the Board of Assessors. I also am the principal assessor for the town of Marshfield, where they do have the right to farm bylaw, so I am a little familiar with that. I think we need to find a happy medium here. We've heard speakers who are talking about an individual's right to, if it's something as simple as raising bees, making honey, selling eggs, is there anything now on the books that preclude them from doing that already? Can't they do that? I mean, George Ferry, zoning commissioner. Do you go down and police people who have a farm stand selling eggs or making honey? And I'm just asking this as food for thought. I tend to agree with Kathy Salmon, our chief assessor, only because we're not always talking about bees, fish in a fish tank. There's no bylaw in Pembroke that says you can't have a fish tank. So why are we creating something that's typically allowed? I think what the issue is and why a limit, whether it's 5 or somewhat less than that, is debatable, but you could have a very small lot, and if you keep farm animals, there is manure, there are smells, there's dust, there's equipment. At what point, if you're in a subdivision of big colonial homes, or even little colonial homes, at what point can your neighbor infringe on the peace and quiet of your home by introducing something that may be potentially noxious? And I love farm animals. I'm a big supporter of the chapter land laws. We encourage them. We've encouraged them here in Pembroke for years. They have them in Marshfield. I worked for the town of Harvard that had more parcels of farmland than anybody in the state. So, but I think you have to put a limitation. And whether you want to amend it from 5 to 3 to 2, I can't see cows and horses on a 5,000 square foot lot. That's just food for thought. You can argue it out, but you really should take that into consideration. And I think if you don't put some kind of a delineation on how much land can be devoted to this, you're going to have exactly what Kathy says. You're going to have neighbors complaining, and they're going to be down at the building department complaining to the building inspector. So, you know, we've got to find some happy medium here.
Chair recognizes Bob DiMarzo.
Thank you. I'll try to be very brief. You cannot have cows and horses on a 5,000 foot parcel. It does not meet the health regulations of the Board of Health. There are regulations that pertain whether you have 10,000, 5,000, or 20 acres. You do not need a size restriction. You talk about a subdivision, well, maybe we should outlaw basketball hoops because the neighbors might get mad, or the kids screaming or the playground. We do not want to pass a bylaw that has two sets of citizens. If you have land, you don't. If you have, whatever you have for land, if you can meet the health regulations, you have a right to farm, you have a right to have bees, chickens, et cetera, et cetera. Don't create two classes of citizens in this town.
The chair recognizes Health Agent Lisa Colletti.
I'm getting my exercise tonight. Mr. DiMarzo, you can't have my job. Well, maybe you can. The reason for the bylaw, now I can put the numbers to it. Yes, you have to have a minimum of a ½ an acre reserved for your house and an additional ½ acre to have a horse or a cow. So no, someone on a 5,000 square foot lot cannot have a horse or a cow. They could have a couple of chickens. There's already a noise ordinance to cover roosters. Nuisance birds are not permitted. You're not allowed to have a rooster crowing day and night, keeping your neighbors awake. There's already a bylaw regarding manure. You're not allowed to stockpile manure and make your neighborhood stink. However, the complaints we get into the health department are not limited to manure and who has a horse. I get calls literally weekly, I smell a horse. Someone next to me has bees. Well, I don't want the bees next to me. I don't want to look at so-and-so's chickens. I live in, fill in any high-end neighborhood in Pembroke, and I'm going to tell you right now, there is no budget of home limit in Pembroke that doesn't have chickens in it. Barnside has chickens. Pick any neighborhood you want. The highest end neighborhoods, Millbury Street has chickens in it. Should that person be told they can't have chickens because they have 1 acre? Under our current regulations, no, but it doesn't stop the neighbor from complaining about it. So I guess what's up for debate here right now, folks, is what are you allowed to do with your land and what are you not, and what do you want?
Chair recognizes Doc Iacobucci.
For the reasons already stated so eloquently by the previous speakers, I oppose limiting it to 5 acres. I would like to vote against the 5 acre restriction.
So is there any further debate? Seeing none, we have 2 votes. Both require a simple majority. First, on the motion by Kathy Salmon to insert the words containing a minimum of 5 acres into Section 2 definitions, farm, on that amendment only. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. I declare it lost. On the main motion, as moved by Carolyn Crosley, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 25 is the next order of business. Chair recognizes John Brown from Advisory.
Move to take no action on Article 25.
John Brown moves that no action be taken on Article 25. The motion has been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 22. Chair recognizes Library Director Deborah Wall.
Mr. Moderator, I am going to speak to this, but I will move to take no action.
Motion's been made to take no action. Is there a second? Chair recognizes Deborah Wall.
This article is a fulfillment of an action the library's been trying to take for several years. As the fire chief mentioned, in 2012, a full-time reference librarian was passed at town meeting, but not funded. We currently have a part-time librarian, and we've been acting to make her full-time. As you see in the explanation, with only 19 hours a week, our current reference librarian has increased attendance at adult events 320% in a year and a half. She is dedicated and works incredibly hard. She comes up with inventive programs, and there obviously is a great need for this position. However, the town has no money, and we recognize that, and we hope that that situation will be corrected moving forward. But for right now, though the position is needed, as I said, we move to take no action.
Is there any further discussion? Again, the motion's been made to take no action. However, that's your decision. So all those in favor of the motion to take no action on Article 22, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 2 we've done. Article 24.
Mr. Moderator,
Chair recognizes Selectman Lou Stone.
I would like to move to take no action on Article 24.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Chair recognizes
Anna Siri, the
Anna
Director.
Siri, the Council on Aging Director.
I just want to bring awareness to the outreach position. For the 2 years that I have been here in Pembroke, I have really been developing the outreach department. We currently have an outreach worker that has worked for us now for over a year and has made a phenomenal impact on many of our residents. Most of those residents are individuals that are not seen to us at the senior center. She does a lot of work at home. My concern is that this position is funded fully by a grant, and right now the grant has always been very stable. However, looking towards the future, it does make me a little alarmed that we may not have this funding for this vital position. So at this time, I do want to impress upon the town the importance of an outreach worker for Council on Aging. Our population is growing. Our aging population, statistically, we will have almost 29% seniors by the year 2030. So that is about a third of our population, and we really need to move forward to that. So I wanted to take this opportunity just to raise awareness about our outreach program.
Any further discussion? Thank you. Nonetheless, the motion is made to take no action. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 17. Being moved by advisory. Yeah, no, why don't we recognize advisory to make this one?
Dance, I don't know.
You've got the amendment.
I have it in front of me, so.
Oh, okay. Okay, Chair recognizes Lisa Cullity.
All right, I'll try and read this quickly. Move to see if the town will vote to amend the Pembroke bylaws, Article, 32, denial, revocation, or suspension of licenses, permits for failure to pay taxes, Section E, that reads as follows. It gives a bunch of exemptions, and it means to add the words.
The chair's going to, we need the right motion, which I think
Okay.
advisory has. So I'm going to ask
I have the wrong one? I
advisory to
apologize.
make the correct motion, and then we can
My
discuss it.
apologies.
It's okay.
Mr. Moderator, I'll move that the town amend the general bylaws as most recently amended by amending Article XXXII, denial, revocation, or suspension of licenses and permits for failure to pay taxes, as printed in Article 17 of the 2017 Annual Town Meeting warrant.
Motion's been made and seconded. The chair recognizes Lisa Cullity.
All this adds is livestock permits to the exemption. In other words, the town doesn't want to go back and revoke and reclaim and impound people's livestock. We have no place to keep them. They would be safe and compliant with the law. The old stone pound is our animal livestock storage area. That one on the front hall of Town Hall. It does not meet any codes at all, so we don't want to revoke livestock.
Any further discussion on this matter? All those in favor of the motion by advisory, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 13.
Mr. Moderator.
Chair recognizes Lou Stone.
Move that the town amend the general bylaws as most recently amended by amending Article 20, Police Regulations, by inserting a new section, 15A, Special Events, as printed in the 2017 Annual Town Meeting warrant.
Is there a second? Chair hears second. Chair recognizes Lou Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd just like to explain to the group here that the Board of Selectmen is just trying to get a handle on some of the events that come before the Board of Selectmen. Like somebody may have a block party at their house, so they want to close off the street. Somebody is going to have a road race, and they want to close down a couple of streets. We have a private airfield in the town. The gentleman has a right to fly his plane in there. He may ask a couple of his friends to join him. They also, at one particular time, had a helicopter come in, and they offered rides. Everyone loved it. There was dozens and dozens of people, plenty of cars, and if the selectmen had a little bit more notification of what people would like to do, then we can talk to the police department, the fire department, anybody in town who should be aware of these events. Public safety is the guideline here. And so what we would like to do is anyone who would like to have an event, call the town hall, give us the information. We will talk to the appropriate people so that the people that attend will have a good time. There'll be no safety issues. There'll be no traffic issues. And so we've been doing this now for quite a number of years. And we feel that by coming out with this idea is going to be better to touch all the bases. Everyone will go to these events. They'll have a good time, and they know they're going to be safe. Thank you. Oh, and it's not going to cost any money, by the way. So I'd like to add that. Thank you.
Chair recognizes former Selectman Bob DiMarzo.
Thank you. This is one of those bylaws. Hi, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you. You need to really read the bylaw to understand what it says, not what it's purported to say. Maybe one of these situations where the board may have a problem with one person or organization, but don't take it out on everybody. So let's read some of the wording. The first part, it talks about public property, but it also talks about private property. So everybody in this room, this affects you, and the selectmen will have a say in what goes on in your house or your yard. They talk about may affect traffic or cause a poor rise in public interest. Such events to include, but not limited to. And then they add all these things, but it's not limited to those events. And then at the very end, they put the word et cetera. What does et cetera mean? Does this mean that when Libby Bates has her 40th birthday party, she has to get a permit? Again. And at the very end, I got to go to the very end, and at the very end, they're going to broadcast it on public cable and tell everybody it's Libby's birthday party or whatever it is. Come on, stay out of the people's lives. Don't get in our lives. Don't tell us what we can do on our property. And let's go further. So the public residents made aware. I wish I brought my glasses. So you shall apply to that, and the selectmen will forward the request to authorization to the following departments. No time frame as to how quickly they have to forward it. After they forward it, the various boards then have 2 weeks to decide if it's okay or what they would want to see how you host your event. And then, if approved by each department, what if one doesn't approve? And then they're going to broadcast it. So, for example, Libby's birthday party. There's going to be a lot of people there. They may require a police detail. Do they really need one on a certain street? I don't know, but they may. Yeah, you got one next door. It's going to be a brief party. It's going to be 4 hours and 5 minutes. Nobody's going to come longer than that to Libby's parties. But police detail, now you got a minimum of 8 hours that you're going to end up paying for, not just 4 hours. I have a lot of problems with it, folks. We don't need government in our lives anymore, and we don't need something this broad-based that they're going to tell you about your birthday party, your anniversary, your bar mitzvah, or whatever else. And believe me, read it closely. That's what it says, and you know how government gets. And by the way, it will cost you something, because if you don't apply, they're going to fine you.
Chair recognizes
And if
Beth
you read the
Dwyer.
bylaws more, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Chair recognizes Beth Dwyer.
Hill Farm Road, Beth Dwyer, 47 Hill Farm Road. My question was, how long is this approval process going to take? A group who is planning an annual event, should we be applying 6 months in advance, 5 months in advance? Because you're right, this is a lot of departments that are going to be reviewing these applications for events. So my question is, how long should we be planning our calendars and planning when to apply? I'm not necessarily in favor of this either. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Selectman Chair Lou Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I don't know where to begin here. Bob, I'd invite you to my birthday, I mean, if you really want to go. I mean, but look at all the extra gifts you're going to get if 500 people show up. Now, folks, let me answer the first question to Beth Dwyer. We're looking to get back to you within 2 weeks of you notifying the Board of Selectmen's office that you're going to have an event such as the fish fry, which was a wonderful experience that we just had. You know how many cars were there. If we didn't have a police officer around, there'd be a lot of trouble. And we also have got some complaints from neighbors who are abutters when some of these events take place, who feel that their quiet enjoyment of their property has been put in jeopardy. So if they had a way of knowing that a big event was going to take place and they were an abutter of the property, maybe they wanted to go to the Cape for the day instead of sitting there and listen to the planes flying overhead. But Bob has pointed out where the selectmen want to get into your lives. Believe me, I don't. But when someone is going to have an event that is going to cause traffic issues, any kind of safety issues, we might need the fire department, we're going to close the street down, we have to know about it only to let the proper people in town know, just so that they are aware that this event is going to take place. They may not say you have to do anything. We're not saying you're going to pay any money. But we have been doing this for quite a while. And we just feel that we don't have enough time to notify the appropriate people. And that's all that we're trying to do. And if you're going to have a birthday party, I don't think you need to call the selectman's office unless you want me to show up and you're going to have to feed me. So thank you for your consideration.
Chair recognizes Chief Wall.
Mr. Moderator, I am from the government. I am here to help. We do this as a rule now. When people apply for a road race, the selectman gives them permission. They email all the people involved, the DPW, the fire department, the police department, to make sure there aren't any issues. And we facilitate all of these things that happen. We're just trying to not get caught off guard and allow the public, again, in a street closure or something else, the ability to know beforehand. So we're doing this already. It's just basically a checklist for the selectmen to make sure that we actually have a right to do it. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Paul Dwyer.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to say I agree with the chief. They do a great job on the large events, large activities that we have in here. But this article, as Mr. DiMarzo has pointed out, is ambiguous. You know, it's how are you defining an event, and what may impact traffic or may raise public interest. Now, if we have a party at our house with just our family, we're talking 25, 30 people. That's going to bring a lot of cars down the street. Well, that could have an impact on the traffic flow on the street. It may get loud. All the women in my wife's family wear hearing aids. It gets noisy. All right? My neighbors will probably hear something. So I could have an impact on my neighbors. I could have an impact on traffic just because I'm having the family at the house. Is this the size of the event that I need a permit for? You know, I think we need to have event defined better than what it is in this article with, et cetera.
Chair recognizes Becky Coletta, not previously having spoken.
Hi, just real quickly. What if it's an impromptu party that attracts 50 people? So I can't have a party with 50 people because it might cause a traffic problem and I didn't plan it 2 or 3 weeks in advance? That seems a little excessive. When I first read it, I thought it was about road races and it was more limited, and Mr. DiMarzo actually kind of opened my eyes.
Chair recognizes Steve Walsh, not previously having spoken.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You know, when other towns, something like this happens, they usually have a public hearing, so people can come in and give you their input about what's happening. But this is so vague, it puts no numbers on anything. Basically, you're asking us for permission to walk the dog down the street because it's an event. Anything that attracts attention of your neighbor. Well, it's going to attract attention of the neighbor if I'm cooking a hamburger because she's not getting one or he's not getting one. I mean, it's vague. That's why we voted it down in advisory. It just doesn't say anything. It's wide open. And who's to say at 7 o'clock someone's not going to call the police station and tell them, you know, I think you got to close that party down. They don't have a permit. Because there's no numbers, there's nothing here, it's so vague. And where's the police department now, stuck in the middle? Do they now tell the resident, oh, I'm sorry, there's a bylaw, but we don't enforce it? Or you have to close your party down because it's now a bylaw. You didn't get a permit. I don't know where we are, but I think there's got to be a little bit more thought put into this. It's too vague, and I understand, you can do whatever you want on public property. But when it comes to private property and people having a cookout and 4th of July and all these things, it's just a little too vague for me. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Bob DiMarzo.
Well, first of all, Paul, after your comment about your wife's family, we do have an extra bedroom in our house tonight if you need a place to sleep. I want to just emphasize, it talks about private property. I don't have a problem with the board talking about road races. We know everything that's on public property, they should be doing those things. Everything that closes down a road, they should be doing those things. But don't tell us what to do on our property, and we have to come to you to ask permission to do it. I'm not reflecting on this board. Thank you. But it could be somebody else sitting up there that has a pet gripe against somebody else sitting up there, and they're going to bust their chops. And they're going to say, we're not going to give them their permit because, and there is a fine. If you violate a town bylaw, and I can show you the section, I made a copy out of the book, there's a $50 fine at least. So there is a cost to it if you don't get the permit and they want to go after you. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion's been made. It was so long ago, I forget who made it. A loose stone from the Board of Selectmen. It takes a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion by Lou Stone in Article 13, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. I declare it lost. Article 32, which has been disposed of already on the consent agenda. Article 10 is the next item of business, which also has been on the consent agenda. Article 5. Chair recognizes Jim McCollum from the advisory.
Mr. Moderator, move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $1,699,099 from solid waste revenue to fund the FY18 Solid Waste Enterprise Fund as shown in Appendix C of this warrant.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Jim McCollum, please say aye. Please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 18, which will be followed by Article 19.
Mr. Moderator, do you want me to move those one at a time?
Well, we'll do Article 18 first. So the chair recognizes Becky Coletta from the Planning Board.
I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaws of the town of Pembroke to specify that the extent of the Center Protection District setback from the relevant ways is exactly 300 feet by deleting the strike-through text and inserting the bold text as printed under Article 18 of this warrant, provided that such amendment shall not take effect until January 1st, 2018.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. The chair has been advised that the Planning Board did have hearing on this article as required by law and voted to support the bylaw change. The chair recognizes Betty Coletta.
Yes, we did have a public hearing, and the board has unanimously voted to support this bylaw change. The idea here is that most of the districts in our town, basically everything other than the residential district, which is the open area in the town, has a setback. It's 300 feet, it's 400 feet, it's 800 feet. It depends on which district you're in. And it goes from a certain way back a certain distance. And we're just trying to clarify that in the Center Protection District, that that amount from the roadway that the district covers is 300 feet. And then if you have a lot that's in two different districts, it gives you an extra 30 feet back from the roadway. Mr. Moderator, do you want to have discussion on this, or can I put the other?
No, we'll dispose of this article first.
Okay.
Chair recognizes Doc Akabuchi.
300 feet is the length of a football field. It's a long distance. The town, being concerned about the appearance of the buildings as you drive down the street, I don't think needs to reach 300 feet into your personal property to accomplish their goals. I would amend it to be 100 feet. Move to amend to 100 feet.
Is there a second? Chair, unless is mistaken, does not hear a second. The motion has been seconded.
Mr. Moderator,
Chair
can I
recognizes
address that?
Becky Coletta.
So the 300 feet goes to how far back from the roadway is within the district that can be developed. So if you put at 100 feet, that means that you can only do the activities permitted in the Center Protection District for 100 feet deep. In general, if you're going to build something like a commercial development in the town center, you would need a minimum of 300 feet. If anything, what we heard at the public hearing was that some people with property in the town center wanted that depth to be more than 300 feet, not less than 300 feet.
Chair recognizes Doc Iacobucci.
If what you're trying to do is encourage development, which is what the words you just spoke imply, why does the language state, created to protect the visual qualities of the historical, cultural, and government center of Pembroke? This says your goal is to protect the visual qualities. Those visual qualities are viewed from a public way. Why should you be imposing upon a private landowner any kind of regulation back 300 feet if your goal is visual qualities as viewed from a public way? If your goal is to help and encourage development, then you've got the wrong language in here.
Right, the chair has been informed by town council that the motion, the amendment by Doc Iacobucci is out of order because it's beyond the scope of the article. And the chair will recognize town council Joel Barr to further explain.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So if people look at the warrant, the top of page 9, you actually have the language that's in that section, the full language in front of you. And looking at the very top of the page, it says, this district is created to protect the visual qualities of the historical, cultural, and governmental center of Pembroke. It shall include all that land that has frontage on the following ways, and presently it says, or to a depth of 300 feet from said ways, whichever is greater. And so all that's proposed to do here is to delete the phrase whichever is greater and replace it from and parallel to. And my understanding is, the planning board can speak to this, but the idea behind this amendment was to make clear, rather than have whichever is greater, just to limit it to the 300 feet, not to have something more variable and unpredictable. So somebody who owns land in this district, reading what is before town meeting tonight, sees that the 300 feet remains in place, but what's happening at the margins is being trimmed. They were not warned that the zoning district was going to be cut down from 300 feet out to only 100 feet. In other words, this is making a very dramatic change to what's in the bylaw today, and it's not what was warned in the warrant, if you will. The point of a warrant is to give people a sense of what's coming before the meeting. What was coming before the meeting under this article is just to fine-tune the language, not to cut by 2/3 the width of the commercial district here, the center protection district. So, Mr. Moderator, it's well outside of the scope of what was advertised.
Thank you. So the motion, the amendment will be withdrawn. So the question remains on the main motion by Becky Coletta. The chair recognizes Libby Bates.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just a point of historical information regarding the center protection bylaw, and the first sentence basically defines the purpose of that bylaw when it was created in the 1970s, late 60s, early 70s. And if you have been in town long enough, you remember Bill Buckley. He was a member of the planning board for many years. This was basically his baby. And if you read the language of the original bylaw and what it was intended to do, it really, and maybe I should be making these comments related to Article 19, really should have nothing to do with use. However, this discussion is about the setback. And I would tell you that in the 1980s, when the town of Pembroke created not one but two Chapter 40C historic districts, one in North Pembroke and the one in the center of town, we thought it would be logical at that time to incorporate the Center Protection District into a Chapter 40C historic district, which basically has more teeth. One's a zoning bylaw, the older Center Protection District. The Chapter 40C historic district is an overlay bylaw. The Chapter 40C historic district in North Pembroke does have a setback of 300 feet. The one in the center of town, which sort of abuts the Center Protection District, actually encompasses the entire parcels of the public buildings within the center of town. So there's not a 300-foot setback regarding them. So I think if you're going to retain the Center Protection District to protect visual qualities of the historical, cultural, and governmental center of town, which was the original goal of it back when the law was written. 300 feet is fine. It's worked for us for almost 40 years. And so I support this amendment. I do have issues with Article 19, but I would say, I just wanted to let people know the history behind the Center Protection District bylaw. It is a zoning bylaw. It is not an overlay district. And maybe sometime we could actually get it incorporated into the Center Pembroke Historic District, and then you could eliminate a lot of these problems. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the main motion moved by Becky Coletta? It does require a 2/3. We'll try it with a show of hands. All those in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted, having reached the necessary 2/3 needed for passage, and we'll immediately go to Article 19. And the chair recognizes Becky Coletta from a planning board.
Planning board. I move that the town vote to amend the zoning bylaws of the town of Pembroke to disallow mixed-use development in the Center Protection District by deleting the strike-through text and inserting the bold text as printed under Article 19 of this warrant, provided that such amendment shall not take effect until January 1st, 2018.
Is there a second? The chair is second. Once again, the chair is obligated to notify the meeting that the chair has been informed that the planning board has held a hearing on this matter as required by statute and has voted to support the proposed bylaw. The chair recognizes Becky Coletta.
Yes, we did have a public hearing and we had some discussions about this. That's one of the reasons that we added since the warrant that this would not take effect until January 1st, 2018. There is at least one project that is in the works right now. It is not our intention, after that project has gone through a substantial amount of process, to change the rules. The idea of doing mixed use in this district was something that came about around 2004 or 5. And what we're finding is that the mixed use is the mixed use was only supposed to be, what, 30 to 50% of the development. And we're finding that in general, a lot of the developments that are coming through the process don't really meet the bylaw. They're requiring variances, and they're more substantially residential development and housing development rather than something that is going to build an economic center in that Center Protection District. And we would like to sort of take a step back from those kind of mixed-use projects and have more time. We might come back at a later meeting and try to find a new way to incorporate mixed use into this district, but for now, we're asking to take that off the table.
Chair recognizes Deborah Wall.
I just would like to ask a question. I'm obviously not in business, but I am very concerned about the vitality of the center and Pembroke in general. Is your intent to only allow businesses in the center and not residential? Is that, I don't quite understand the negative impact of mixed use.
Chair recognizes Brian Van Riper from the Planning Board.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. No, the intent is not to eliminate residential. For instance, residential district A is a continued or an allowed use. It's specifically the mixes combined of business and residential on the same site. And that's what we're trying to address here.
Chair recognizes Deborah Wall.
But why is that a bad thing? That's what I don't quite understand. If you have a new complex and the lower section, say, is retail, and they want to put apartments or condos on the upper level, I guess I'm not seeing why that's a bad thing.
Chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
I'm sorry, yeah. That was the original intent. That was the intent of this bylaw when we adopted it approximately 10 years ago. That's not what has occurred in practice. While the bylaw required a 50% composition of business and a 50% of the building floor area we're talking about as residential on the same site. In fact, we've had 2 projects approved over that span of utilizing mixed use. We have, on those 2 projects today, the one that's been built and the one that's been recently approved but not completed, is about 25 to 27 housing units, averaging 2 bedrooms each. And the second project approved just recently by the board has finally got 3,000 square feet of business area approved. So that means roughly 40,000 square feet of residential permits under the bylaw, and 3,000 that we're contemplating now. That's about a 12, 13 to 1 ratio. That was not the intent. The intent when the bylaw was drafted and adopted, the newer version that Libby had spoke about earlier, was there to try to attract business into the center because it was failing. We had a broken down Center Plaza area, which since that time got picked back up by that developer, property owner, and converted into the one you see today. And the intent of the bylaw, again, was to introduce business into the center, a good thing, and to bring that into the center was to attract a residential element, the part that any developer who has some cachet, that's what they're going to go for, and that's exactly what they've gone for. Not provide any business element and provide all residential. Now, I'll just give you a quick backup. One of the concerns we have with the center in general is traffic. What goes on in that center right now from this point forward will dramatically affect the future development of that community center. So we have to be very, respectful and considerate of how these types of developments will affect traffic flow and hopefully attract additional business into the center. Simple as I could explain it. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? The chair recognizes Jerry Dutson from Mattakesett Street.
Jerry Dutson, 37 Mattakesett Street. I just want to know, is this going to affect like Sunshine Pool? They live there. Mr. Van Riper, is this going to affect Sunshine Pool? Is it going to affect Dave's vegetable stand? That's mixed use, right?
Chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
I'm sorry, the 2 businesses that you mentioned were the fruit stand and the
right, and like
pool company?
Sunshine Pool,
Yeah.
Shepherd's Funeral Home, there's somebody that lives there.
Yeah, are they residential properties or commercial properties?
Well, they're in the center zone, and they're, I don't know. They're,
well, we do have a bylaw in town that allows homeowners to have businesses contained within their home. So if it's one of those combinations, primarily a residence with a softer business use, shall we say, that's allowable already under the bylaw. That's not going to affect either one of those businesses. In terms of whether or not they're businesses, though, that, well, I don't know if they've legally have got permit to have an apartment, for instance. I can't tell you that. I'm sorry.
Like Sunshine Pool.
We just can't allow too much give and take here, one-on-one, but Chair recognizes Jerry Dutson.
All right,
Good
and
question.
then just one other thing about the traffic in the center of town. Your board is promoting business in the center of town. Well, business is going to bring in traffic. So you're contradicting yourself on different issues with the center.
I don't think
Chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
I don't think it's conflict. Yes, we're trying to attract business into town, and yes, it will generate traffic. And yes, we've continued to try to attract, and will in the future, I'm sure, residential housing. We haven't had a shortage of residential housing built in the center of town. You have Jocelyn Farms, you have Elliott Street, you have 2 or 3 the two mixed-use projects that are now been approved, one fully built. Then you have a 40B development right at the end of Mountain Avenue. So if you take a look at the combination of things, we're not lacking residential housing in our center. And as we proceed, I'm sure more residential development will come forward. What we're trying to say is that the mix of that was allowed under this bylaw has not accomplished what was intended. It's as simple as I put it. I gave you a statistic of a tremendous amount of residential square footage built and very little commercial. And
Right, and
I'd like to try to get a better mix, better match.
And as
we got to cut it off. We can't allow a one-on-one. These are good questions, and I understand the impact people, but we just can't allow a debate back and forth. The chair is a little cognizant also of the time. The chair will recognize Becky Coletta, and then maybe we can go to the question.
Just real quick, part of the issue here too is we had a master plan. Part of the master plan was that this was one of the districts in town that would attract some amount of business. There's only certain areas that we allow business in town. We allow residential in a lot more areas than we allow business. And we have very limited property available for business people. And this is something that we are looking to develop to increase the economic base of our town and to increase the services available in town. What we're really looking to do is to go back to where the bylaw was originally and to sort of just take a step back from that mixed-use piece.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by the planning board, which does require a 2/3 vote by Becky Coletta, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted, having reached the necessary 2/3 needed for passage. Article 30. Chair recognizes the petitioner for this article, David McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to move to amend the Town of Pembroke bylaws, Article 22, junk motor vehicles, by deleting Section 4 and inserting a new Section 4 as printed in the 2017 Annual Town Meeting warrant.
Motion's been made and seconded. The chair recognizes David McDonald.
It's actually Daniel McDonald.
Daniel, I'm sorry.
Good evening, fellow Pembroke residents, selectmen, and committee members. My name is Daniel McDonald, and I've lived at 234 Oldham Street for 35 years. In November of 2014, 3 trailers were moved onto the abutting property. The first trailer is a 3-axle enclosed car carrier that is 47 feet long. Behind the car carrier is another 34-foot-long recreational vehicle trailer. Both trailers have been placed immediately along my southerly lot line with no setbacks, as there are none required by law at this time. And these 2 trailers together comprise an 8-foot aluminum wall that extends for 81 feet along my southerly lot line. A third 34-foot recreational vehicle trailer arrived a few days later and was parked adjacent to the second trailer. 2 of the 3 trailers are unregistered and have not moved off the property since they were placed there in November of 2014. The neighbors and I felt that the storage of multiple RV trailers was a commercial use of the property, but Pembroke zoning enforcement did not agree. In a letter dated March 30th, 2015, the zoning enforcement officer indicated that although there are many regulations that address occupied house trailers, such as 40-foot setback required from property lines, 20 feet required from main building, occupied house trailers can only be on the property for 6 months. There are no permits or regulations that pertain to trailers or RVs that are just being stored on the property. Additionally, the zoning officer indicated that under the junk motor vehicle provisions, farm vehicles and/or recreational vehicles and trailers are all exempt. After reviewing the current laws, it was determined that there is, in fact, no limit to the number of RVs, motorhomes, trailers that can be stored on a single residential property. Article 30 was written to plug the hole in the zoning laws. Article 30 will limit the number of trailers in excess of 20 feet that can be stored on a residential lot to one trailer. So trailers 20 feet and under would be unaffected by Article 30. And a resident who would like to store a single 35, 40, 45-foot long RV, motorhome, or other trailer would also not be affected by Article 30. However, if a resident would like to store more than one trailer or recreational vehicle in excess of 20 feet, a public hearing would be required after notice to abutters. This is the current law for junk motor vehicles. Why would it be any different for the storage of multiple unregistered trailers in excess of 20 feet? Thank you for your participation this evening. Your support of Article 30 would be greatly appreciated by all of the abutters and sponsors of this article. Are there any questions?
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none. All those in favor requires a simple majority vote. All those in favor of the motion by Daniel McDonald, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 12.
Mr. Moderator,
Chair recognizes Lou Stone.
move to take no action on Article 12.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Moderator,
Chair
just a
recognizes
word of
Lou Stone.
explanation. The South Shore Community Action Council has notified the Board of Selectmen that they understand the financial issues in the town of Pembroke for this year. And they would like to cooperate with the town, and they are grateful for what the town has done for them in the past. And they would like to take no action on this article. Thank you.
Any discussion on this motion? All those in favor of the motion to take no action on Article 12, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. 6.
Mr. Moderator,
Chair recognizes Lou Stone.
move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $59,070 from taxation and $31,357 from water revenue to fund a new collective bargaining agreement between the town of Pembroke and Council 93, Local 1700 Public Works for the period from July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2020, and further to appropriate the sum of $58,224 from free cash, $2,386 from water revenue, and $624 from trash revenue to fund a new collective bargaining agreement between the town of Pembroke and Council 93, Local 1700 Town Hall for the period from July 1, 2017 to June 30th, 2020, and further to appropriate the sum of $9,376 from free cash to fund a new collective bargaining agreement between the Pembroke Police Superior Officers Association for the period from July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2019.
A motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Moderator,
Chair
just a
recognizes
note
Lou
of
Stone.
explanation, if I may. This article allows the town to fund collective bargaining agreements negotiated between the Board of Selectmen and the listed unions. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Chair recognizes former advisory committee members Matthew McNeely.
I don't want to get into a lot of mud, but maybe you could just tell us what the percentage increase is for the 3 years covering the contracts, if you wouldn't mind. Lou? I mean, I'd just like to know, is it 1 the first year, 2 the second year, 3, is it 3, 3, and 3, 2, 2, and 2, 1? What's the percentage?
Chair recognizes Lou Stone.
Thank you very much. This is a 2% raise across the board for the 3-year term for all of the unions. The Board of Selectmen, working with the financial folks here in town, decided that was all we could afford, and we negotiated for a very, very long period of time. But the unions saw our situation, and we were able to work things out. So it's a 2% increase. Thank you.
Chair recognizes, and I'm sorry, I'm already forgetting your name.
Dan Pelletier, West Elm Street.
Dan Pelletier.
My question is, it's my understanding that water enterprise revenue can't be used for other departments outside of that enterprise account. Are you using that water enterprise money to fund the union increases outside of Public Works?
The question the chair recognizes Mike Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This just covers the water revenue portion, only covers the one clerical person and the other people who work in the water division.
Good question, good answer. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion made by Lou Stone on Article 6, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 20.
Mr. Moderator.
Chair recognizes Jim McCullum.
Move to accept as a town way the altered and relocated layout of the streets known as Equestrian Way and Pheasant Lane as shown on the street layout plan entitled Equestrian Estates dated August 12, 2016, prepared by Outback Engineering Incorporated, as heretofore laid out by the Board of Selectmen and filed with the town clerk, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain any and all property interest and appurtenances in said street, together with all related drainage, utility, and other easements for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article 29. Yeah, we did 29. Thank you. That was one of the petition articles.
Yeah, all these petitions we did.
There are only a couple items left. The chair would state that this has been probably the most we have had at a turnout, with maybe the exception of one meeting several years ago when we had some items regarding to the school. But at the start of this meeting, there were a total of 476 registered voters, and the chair thanks you for attending. Our quorum is 150 to start, 150 once the meeting is opened, and particularly for those who are new, there were lots of different items to attract people, but we appreciate you coming and particularly staying to the end. And we're almost finished. Article 14 is the next item of business.
Mr.
And
Moderator.
the chair recognizes Chief Wall.
The intent of this article was to hire 2 patrolmen. Based on what I've been told by advisory and the Board of Selectmen and the budget, I'm going to ask to postpone this. I would like to, not postpone it, to take no action, but I would like to speak to the article.
First on the motion to take no action, is there a second? Chair has second. The chair recognizes Chief Wall.
If you guys don't mind, you've heard this speech 5 years in a row, so it's nothing new for you. That's the case. This is my 5th budget as chief, and each year I've gone in there requesting people, and not because I want them, it's because we need them. 31 years ago when I started full-time, we had more patrolmen on the road than we have today, and the town has gotten a third bigger, and our jobs have changed. Did anybody get the robocall today about the opioid drop-in clinic in Plymouth? That's the kind of thing we're dealing with today that we weren't dealing with 31 years ago. Public service has changed tremendously. I'm going to come back in the fall, and I'm going to ask you to hire at least 2 people. I need 7. I'll start with 2. And the reason I'm asking is I'm going to have some retirements. I'm going to have some senior people leave my department, and I don't want a hole that I have to fill later and have to start training people to do jobs that I have people in there now doing. Right now, we're running less patrol than we did in the 90s. That's not good. We need it more than ever. We need the services for this town. I appreciate you all hanging out. I'm not going to give you a huge lecture because we are coming back, but I need you to come back in the fall. I need you to support this. Police and fire, we're stretched way beyond what we should be doing, and there are services that we should be doing. Not, you know, the law and order part, the crime stuff has gone down, but crime stats don't tell you about how good your town is. You know, it's this level of services that you provide, and how you help people before it becomes a crime is what we need to do. I mean, I have 2 detectives right now, actually 1.5. I have 1 guy full-time doing narcotics, and it's more work than he can handle. And I have a supervisor, a sergeant, that works half of his shifts in patrol, and in the other half, you know, doing detective work. That used to be a full-time job, and I don't know how he does it. I mean, we need to fix this. So I'll be back. I'm going to ask that we don't do anything on this right now, but please come back in the fall. I'm going to be asking for at least 2 guys. I need to get them in the academy in December if we're going to make this whole thing work. It's 6 months of training before they even become police officers, and then it's another 3 months of field training before they become useful police officers. So I need you to be here and support that. And again, thank you for sticking it out.
On the motion by Chief Wall to take no action now on Article 14, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. This is not planned, the chair assures you. Article 27. Yes. So Article 27 is a lengthy article that has, I think it's 13 separate appropriations for articles to be spent by the CPC money. And so traditionally how we do this is we'll take each recommendation as a separate vote. So the chairman of the CPC committee is Brian Van Riper, and for recommendation A, Article 27, the chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Move to appropriate the sum of $24,500 from FY18, fiscal year 18, annual budgeted reserves, and that said funds be used by the Pembroke Council on Aging for historical preservation purposes, by exterior painting and replacement of rotting wood and shingles at the Council on Aging Senior Center.
Motion, is there a second? Is there any discussion?
Thank you.
On this motion, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation B, the chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $10,000 from FY18 annual budgeted reserves, and that said funds be used by the Pembroke Department of Public Works for the purpose of improving the landscaping at Ludham's Ford.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it nonetheless, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation C, the chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $13,600 from FY18 annual budgeted reserves, and that said funds be used by Pembroke Youth Baseball for the recreational purpose of installing dugout roofs on fields D and E at the Mattakesett Street baseball fields.
Second.
Any discussion? See, that's my job. Yeah. All those in favor of the recommendation of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation D, chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $12,500 from FY18 annual budgeted reserves, and that said funds be used by the town administrator of the town of Pembroke for the recreational purpose of dugout improvements on the high school field at Mattakesett Street baseball fields.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it. I declare it so voted. Recommendation
E.
E. Chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $22,419 from FY18 annual budgeted reserves, and that said funds be used by the Pembroke Recreation Commission for the recreational purpose of improving the parking lot and guardrail at the J.J. Shepherd Ball Field Complex.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation F.
Move to appropriate the sum of $10,000 from FY18 annual budgeted reserves, and that said funds be used by the town administrator of the town of Pembroke for the recreational purpose of fence replacement at Little Sandy Beach.
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. G, chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $50,000 from FY18 annual budgeted reserves, and that said funds be used by the Pembroke Department of Public Works for the historical preservation purpose of repairing headstones and stone walls at Mount Pleasant Cemetery and Center Street Cemetery.
Second.
Is there any motion and second and any discussion on this item? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation H, the chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $12,000 from the Open Space Recreation Fund reserves, and that said funds be used by the town administrator of the town of Pembroke for the open space preservation purpose of treating Oldham Pond for the suppression of blue-green algae and for the treatment of Hobbermock Pond for hydrilla control.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it nonetheless, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation I.
Move to appropriate the
recognizes
sum of
Brian Van Riper.
$15,000 from FY18 undesignated fund reserves, and that said funds be used by the Pembroke Department of Public Works for the historical preservation purpose of repairing and restoring headstones at the cemetery on Water Street Extension.
Second.
Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation J, the chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $45,000 from FY18 undesignated fund reserves, and that said funds be used by the town administrator of the town of Pembroke for the historical preservation purpose of replacing windows and doors at the firehouse pantry at 32 School Street, Bryanville.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. The chair recognizes Steve Walsh from Advisory.
Just a couple of questions. This is still an active firehouse. Do you have the support of the fire chief?
Yes, I do.
Chair recognizes Peg Struzik.
Yes, we have the full support of the fire chief.
Is there any further discussion? The chair recognizes Fire Chief
I
Michael
will
Hill.
concur with Peg. She does, because if
Thank you.
things do not pan out what we're trying to do with new fire stations, at least I have new doors and windows to hold the heat in.
Okay. So
The chair recognizes Steve Walsh.
this is historic preservation, which means it's now a historic firehouse, which means that once we invest money into the historic firehouse and it is deemed a historic property, it will always be there.
Steve, can I tell you what this building does?
So the other question that really comes is that, you know, I went to the meeting and I asked some questions. And basically, they told me, well, it isn't up to the fire chief, it's a public building. And the people, this is what they want. So my question was just if the fire chief wanted it, that's fine. If he has no problem with it, that's fine also. So I asked if the Historic Commission had approved this. And they said, yes, the Historic Commission voted to approve this as a historic property. So the question then, I asked Mr. Thorne if the Board of Selectmen approved this as a historic property. So have you voted this a historic property?
Well, the chair can't compel anyone to answer the question, but it'd probably be good if the chair, if this board response, chair recognizes Arthur Boyle.
Mr. Moderator, I don't think we've ever been asked to declare it as a historic building.
Well, under the Historic
That's not
Commission...
Chair recognizes Steve Walsh and...
Under the Historic Commission, establishment powers and duties under the Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8D, it states for the purposes of protecting and preserving such places that may make such recommendations as deemed necessary in the City Council or to the Board of Selectmen, and subject to the approval of the City Council or the Selectmen to the Massachusetts Historic Commission, that any such place be certified as historical. So if the Historic Commission voted it historical and you didn't vote it historical, apparently it's not historical. But maybe I'm wrong.
Chair recognizes Peg Struzek.
Hi, Steve. Thank you. Before this article was approved, excuse my voice, we did go in front of Libby's group.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Libby, you want to
No,
explain?
no, please, go ahead,
Okay.
finish.
I was asked to come up and talk about the building. The reason I'm standing here instead of the chief is because the chief lent us his building to put a food pantry into. We did look at other buildings in town. There is no other space to put a food pantry. We thought we were only going to be there for a short time. We've been open for a year and a half. We have over 600 families who come to us for food. We have two groups. One is an outreach group. That group takes soup and food to Brockton, and they serve up to 10,000 meals a month out of that building. It's an old building. We have asbestos floors. The windows, I believe, probably original. They were from 1950. It's probably 50 degrees in the winter, and it's hot as blazes in the summer. But we're there, and as long as we're going to need to, we're going to stay there. We would like this approved just to make things easier. They want to bring the floor up so it's handicap accessible. Some of the things what we have done out of that building, when I say we, I mean this collective town, because this group may have started it, but everybody in this town. Bob DeMarzo's over there, been there from the beginning. Bill Bolter comes in and he fixes our back room. Hannon has been there, the Dell Men's group over there. This room is full of people who sent us checks. There's a man sitting here who somehow found Brian Phil and walked into us when we were ready to close and bought us 30 tons of groceries. The people in this town, these are amazing numbers, and when I say we, I mean the collective we. We have trucked into that fire station 235 tons of groceries in a year and a half. We do it through the Boston Food Bank. The bill from the Boston, if it was a retail bill, it would have been $4,856,000 worth of groceries that this town has helped us pay $33,000 for. This is a much-needed building. We will stay there whether we get it fixed or not. But if you're getting it fixed, we'll make it easier to stay there. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Libby Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just as a clarification of the role of the Historical Commission regarding community preservation funds, any project anywhere in town that is petitioning for funding to do some kind of a project related to preservation, restoration, has to get a letter of recommendation from your local historical commission. And PEG came in and they showed us what they wanted to do. By supporting their petition, that doesn't make that structure a designated historic site. What it does is, and it is an older building, excuse me, I'm like you, Peg.
I know, my whole voice.
Got to get my carburetor adjusted, I guess. But that's our role in the community preservation. In order for a structure to be designated as a historic building, there are a number of ways to do it, and that would be for the local historical commission to do a report and submit it to Mass Historical, and it gets on the town survey. Or it might be located in a Chapter 40C historic district. But the community preservation funds, the pool of money for historical, can be used anywhere in town. And if it meets the criteria that the commission is responsible for reviewing, then we endorse it. And it doesn't have to be a designated building. I mean, that's an old fire station. It could probably go on the survey. We've got an opening on the historical commission. You want to do a little research, come aboard. But we did endorse this. They're very sensitive to the appearance of the building, and that's one of our concerns. So that's just to clarify, we didn't designate it a historic building. That's all.
Any further discussion?
Steve, can I
on
say?
this? Chair recognizes
I
Peg
got ahead
Sturgis.
of myself, which happens a lot. Chief Hill has been absolutely amazing. I don't think he had any idea what was walking in. We asked him if we could have the building, if we could borrow his building. And then there's 3 men over here, the Dell Men's Group. They've adopted us and supported us. And the banks, I can't tell you people how much this town has paid for every bit of these groceries. And thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion by Brian Van Riper on Article 27, Recommendation J, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation K, the chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Move to appropriate the sum of $25,000 from the FY18 historic reserves, and that said funds be used by the Pembroke Historical Commission for the purpose of preserving the historic John Turner House at 369 Washington Street.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. The chair recognizes Steve Curley from Advisory.
Mr. Moderator, through you, probably going to end up having to ask Libby some of these. This is a building that is on the property that we are potentially going to be putting a fire station, so I believe this may have to be moved. I just want to know, number one, has anyone ascertained that, is it structurally sound enough? Because it has been empty for a number of years. And number two, my other question is, what is the extent of this is obviously probably the first request. I just wanted to know what the long-term plans and what the projected costs may be.
For purposes of answering the questions, chair recognizes Libby Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Answering as chair of the Historical Commission. This is a building of extraordinary historic importance to the town. When I moved to Pembroke 38 years ago, it was a lovely Georgian residential house. It had an attached barn, and over the years we have seen it fall on hard times. For a period of 5 or 6 years, the Pembroke Historical Commission, working with the prior owner, and now that the town has acquired it, has been working to determine if there is a way to save this structure and make it a viable part of the town's historic inventory. Just as a little backup information, in the last year, we have lost 3 18th century houses. I'm sure everybody's heart was broken like mine was when the house on Barker Street, 75 Barker Street, got torn down, the Squire Keene Mansion. And I've been in that house, and it was extraordinary. That's gone. 1725 house over on Grove Street, that's gone. The house on Center Street, the Little Cape, 1700s, gone. We are losing treasures that are of great historical significance. This particular property was owned, and we refer to it as the John Turner House. John Turner chaired the committee that wrote the Pembroke Resolves in 1772. And that was the first written document anywhere in the colonies, anywhere in America, in writing, calling for the dissolution of the Union between Great Britain and the American colonies. First time anybody had the guts to stand up and put it in writing. And like John Hancock, John Turner was the largest signature on there. This was his property. It eventually went to his son. It came to him down through many years. There was a mill on the property. So it's more than just a rundown old house. Several years ago, we paid an expert consultant on the viability of this building, not only its condition, it looks terrible from the outside, but we needed to know, and this was before the town acquired it, whether the house could be moved. And we have a report written, I've provided it to some people, members of the commission have it, stating that the house is structurally sound and it actually could have been moved. We prefer it not to be moved because any historic property is more, its value as a historic site is enhanced by being on the location where it was built. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The money we're asking for tonight is basically to button it up. I'm sure you've all gone by and you see the windows opening and we found the door opening. We want to make this building weathertight again. And so that, yes, I mean, look at how long it took us. It took us 25 years to restore the Bethel Chapel, and that's tiny. But we've got to start someplace. And if the town goes forward with its plans to utilize that property for public safety, there's enough space there to work it all in together. And the town also has to keep in mind, it's all in a Chapter 40C historic district. So this is a small amount of money. We're asking just give us enough money to prevent this structure from further deteriorating from the weather getting in and deteriorating. And we will continue to work. And one of the things I have always talked about when we discuss this real estate is finding a viable use for it. We're not going to just restore it and then close the door and have a nice house to look at when we drive by. We want to make it a viable piece of real estate. They did it in Marshfield with the Daniel Webster estate. Over time, they restored it. Now it's a venue that can be used, and $2,500 a pop to use that structure. But they didn't want to tear it down. So this is a project, and it's a long-term project. And we've already been working on it in a number of years. But it is a very important house. And, you know, we're just losing too many of them. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion by Brian Van Riper on recommendation K, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Recommendation L, the chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $15,000 from community housing reserves, and that said funds be used by the Pembroke Housing Authority for the purpose of supporting community housing by purchasing and installing a new backup generator at McDonald Way Housing Development.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. Article Recommendation M, Chair recognizes Brian Van Riper.
Move to appropriate the sum of $100,000 from community housing reserves and that said funds be used by the Pembroke Housing Authority for the purpose of supporting community housing by installing new roofs at the McDonald Way housing development.
Second.
Any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? The ayes have it, and I declare it so voted. The last item of business is Article
Thank you.
21. And before we dissolve after this meeting and everyone rushes out, the chair just wants to take an opportunity to thank, as always, so many people involved in making this meeting run smoothly. The advisory committee started the process back in the fall. But the chair, at the beginning of the meeting, over the last couple of days, at least 4 town officials have come up to me and said, please thank this individual person. And I said, it was in my notes, I'm going to do it anyway. Chair wants to particularly thank the executive assistant to the Board of Selectmen, Sabrina Chilcott, for her work in preparing this town meeting. It has not only kept the board in the straight and narrow, but the moderator, which I greatly appreciate. So thank you. On Article 21, the chair recognizes Selectman Matthew Furlong.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Pembroke bylaws, Article 20, Police Regulations, by adding a new section, 14C, Marijuana Establishments, that would prohibit retail marijuana establishments, and further to amend the table of contents to add Section 14C, Marijuana Establishments, by adding the text as printed in the 2017 Annual Town Meeting warrant.
Motion's been made and seconded. Chair recognizes Matthew Furlong.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And I know there's a lot of controversy over this bill, but I'd like to assure everyone this would not take away anyone's right to consume marijuana by smoking or eating it, or to ban medical marijuana sales. All this would do would ban retail marijuana. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chief Wall.
And again, I think what Matthew said, this is not going to affect an individual's right to possess, to transport, or to consume marijuana. What it does, it prohibits the retail sales and the commercialization of recreational marijuana in the town of Pembroke. So, again, it doesn't hinder anybody's individual rights, and it doesn't hinder a future medical marijuana facility if one planned to open here. We talked about character with the right to farm, and I think retail marijuana facilities at Pembroke's a game changer. I think it changes the character. On the radio today, Foxborough just voted for a prohibition in their town. They had a town meeting last night, and they had a vote earlier in April. They're the 5th town to do so, and according to the Boston Public Radio, there's about 70 other towns looking to take action. So, again, based on what other communities may do, I think we got to protect our character in the prohibition. We just started the school resource officer. He just started in January. You know, we don't have a DARE program, a drug awareness program. PTAD's only a couple of years going. We have to work a little bit harder to target harden our children to make those good choices before we start subjecting everybody to too many choices. I talked to you about the manpower issues. We don't have any. I mean, we're officer power. If Carol Dodge is still here, she'd be upset if I said manpower. Because we're very reactive. We're not a very proactive police department right now. And again, there's a couple other things that you got to consider. The industry is the one that profits by retail marijuana, not the town. We're held to a 2% tax on the sales. So if you had a business that sold $1 million worth of marijuana, the town would see $20,000. That's an awful lot of marijuana and not very much profit for the town. So again, there is money in marijuana. It's for the industry. So I'm asking you to support the prohibition. Again, if things change down the road and the town wants to change the bylaw,
you could state your name,
Good evening, Mr.
please.
Moderator. My name is Paul Hayes. I live on Dwelly Street in Pembroke.
Chair would add former Hanover Police Chief.
That is correct, thank you. I'm here tonight as a citizen of Pembroke, though. I'm expressing why allowing recreational marijuana to be sold in Pembroke is bad for Pembroke. I encourage everyone to become familiar with the truth about what will happen with recreational marijuana sales in our community. This information is meant to keep our community safe from from marijuana commercial sales. We already have medical marijuana. What follows is my own perspective on commercial marijuana sales in the town of Pembroke as a citizen, as well as a psychology professor at Curry College who lectures about drugs and behavior. I have been an educator in this field for over 35 years. Should we believe that recreational marijuana sales will be harmless and non-addictive and not get in the hands of our youth? Recreational marijuana in the 60s through the 80s and 90s averaged just about 4%. Samples now average roughly 60% THC. That's the high they get out of the marijuana. It's not as addictive as alcohol, or tobacco, or heroin, but its addiction rate is 1 in every 11 adults who have tried it and 1 in 6 adolescents who ever used it. Shouldn't that give us a little pause? Talk about eliminating the black market. Recreational retail sales of marijuana does not reduce the black market, it worsens it. There's a regulated retail market which will be taxed and overseen by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and an unregulated street market that avoids the retail taxes by the state. Since cultivation, processing is allowed independent of retail market, the black market becomes a gray market for people who choose to use the legalization to shield them from breaking the law. The black market focuses on circumventing the tax system. Legal marijuana in Colorado and Washington has been distributed to every other state in the country, including the alleged protected adolescents. Should we accept the inevitable? Should we accept that recreational retail sales will happen in Pembroke and therefore try to make the best policy we can? I say no. The referendum ballot question already allows the cultivation of marijuana on privately owned property. 12 plants per household, 10 ounces per person. Let's be realistic. 30 joints an ounce, unless you're rolling Cheech and Chong joints. That means 300 joints per person. 12 plants roughly give you 8 ounces. Each times 30 joints per ounce is another 240 joints per household. That means 500 plus joints per household before even they go to a retail shop. Well, we will never be able to determine how much is grown or sold, how much of this cultivated marijuana winds up in the black market, never to be taxed and gets in the hands of 21-year-olds or under. We'll not be able to control marijuana-infused edible products. Whole different area. Marijuana-infused products came with medical marijuana, but most citizens don't realize it yet. More and more underage users are now using concentrates, oils, shatters, dabs, which contain 90% THC, marijuana-infused candies, drinkables, and edible products. If you follow the news this week in Plymouth, they had children sick in one of the Plymouth schools because someone bringing in marijuana-infused brownies. So we cannot control it. Products, the THC levels vary in all these products, as well as the effects on individuals who are using it. Not one is approved by the FDA. None of this is approved by the FDA. It's still illegal. I and many others are concerned about the path Massachusetts is taking towards allowing retail marijuana sales in our communities, and we surely must educate ourselves. Many towns since November have already banned recreational marijuana sales, as alluded to by Chief Wall. If you think marijuana recreational sales is a good idea, I suspect you may change your mind after really seeing what's going on in Colorado and other states. It is not really a rosy picture as they want you to believe. And finishing up, here in Massachusetts, we haven't even fully implemented medical marijuana, still trying to eliminate cigarette smoking, and now we want to allow recreational marijuana in our communities. With all the problems we are facing with the current opiate crisis, it seems foolish to be adding fuel to the fire and have one more thing to be concerned about for our children. I hope the citizens of Pembroke are smart enough to see this, as they were when the majority of the residents and the majority voted against the ballot question in November to legalize recreational marijuana. This is all about big money taking over the town for their profit, and don't forget that. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Is there any further discussion on this matter?
Mr. Moderator.
Chair recognizes Dr. Iacobucci.
Move to insert the words, quote, "all medical facilities and uses accepted," from this bylaw to the proposed bylaw. The reason I'm stating that is that medical marijuana uses are legal and are in effect, and they're being of tremendous medical benefit to people who are sick, and it's been shown to help people get off of opioids. It's shown to help people with PTSD. It's shown to help people with anxiety and panic attacks, and it's being dispensed under medical supervision. So there's no reason we should prohibit medical applications. There's no reason we should prevent a farmer in Pembroke from growing marijuana if it's going to be used only for medical purposes. I have no objections to, and I support Paul Hayes and Chief on the recreational aspect of it. But I don't think we should be opposing the medical uses growth in our town because it's proven to be beneficial and it's already under regulation and it's already legal. So therefore I ask you to support my motion to insert the words all medical facilities and uses accepted from this bylaw to the proposal.
Is there a second to Doc's motion? Well, wait a minute. There is a second. Okay. Chair recognizes Chief Wall.
Mr. Moderator.
Before that, the chair would ask Doc if you could write that out. We need it in writing. Chair recognizes Chief
Through you to
Wall.
Town Council. This question was brought up, and medical marijuana is under a different chapter and section, and we actually have a separate bylaw in town that covers medical marijuana, so it's a separate chapter and section that's cited in this law, so it's not included in this restriction. Is that correct?
Chair recognizes Joel Bard.
Mr. Moderator, yes, Chief, that's correct. The amendment, if you will, would clarify what otherwise would potentially be a conflict. So in other words, I think, Chief, what you're referring to is the zoning bylaw already addresses and permits in a limited area medical marijuana. This would be a townwide general bylaw that by its terms does prohibit retail marijuana establishments across the board. So this amendment would, well, I mean, the language is clear. It accepts, it carves out, if you will, medical marijuana facilities.
But medical marijuana facilities covered under a different chapter and section than the one listed in the bylaw?
Yes, over in the zoning bylaw.
No, in Massachusetts law.
In Massachusetts law.
Right.
Yes, well, Massachusetts law allows it where it's permitted locally and when licensed and so forth, just as the recreational is.
So doesn't our...
So, just so we can't have too much give and take, but I think the crux of the question is the motion by Dr. Iacobucci pertinent or needed? Is that?
That is the question.
I guess it'd be up to the voters to decide whether or not it's needed. As a legal matter, I'm speaking strictly as a legal matter, it is, I would say, clarifying. Is it needed? The voters can decide, but it does make clear where there may be potentially some confusion.
To summarize,
The chair recognizes Doc Iacobucci.
I'm in total support of what the chief said and what Paul Hayes said. We want to ban the recreational use of it for the reasons they gave. But again, we should not be overreaching in establishing a bylaw which by its very language says it bars all uses. So by inserting the expression all medical uses and facilities are exempted from this bylaw, we're simply saying we recognize it's already legal in Massachusetts, it's already in effect in Massachusetts, and already doing good in Massachusetts, and therefore we're not going to go against it. We're not going to be the only town in Massachusetts that says we don't allow medical uses.
Any further discussion on this matter? First, on the motion by Doc Iacobucci, once again, it's to add the words, all medical uses and facilities accepted from this bylaw. On that amendment only, all those in favor of Doc's amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed? I declare it lost. On the main motion made by Matthew Furlong on Article 21, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? I declare it so voted. The chair, once again, thanks you for your patience. For those who are new to town meeting, the chair hopes you get a sense of how things are run. We're not perfect, but we do a pretty darn good job, and you're a part of it. Arthur Boyle moves that the meeting be dissolved. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The meeting is dissolved.